Can you hear me now? Glad you guys can hear me. This is going to be the first in a series of three or four recorded live streams that are also going to be indexed and available on smokerbuilder.com. So I'm glad you're able to join us tonight live. This is refreshing to see that I have some people in the audience that I already know. We have 4 minutes to go, and then the Zoom call will be ready. So just bear with us. Let me just test out this other camera feature and make sure it's working. I'm going to be like a 3-year-old. Let's just see if this works. Hopefully you guys can see that there's some blocks on my desk. Let's see if that is apparent. Frank is in the building. Here we go. Just so you know, it's paused right now, the recording, because I needed to go behind the scenes to get this done. This is also going out on YouTube Live right now as well, and possibly even Facebook. So I am.
Oh, you're doing stream, live stream?
Oh, we're going. We are streaming. We are zooming. We are getting ready to rock.
Well, would you rather me? Okay, never mind. We're good. Yeah, just
okay.
run. Yeah.
I'm running with it. I'm running. Here comes Patrick.
What's up, fellas?
How you doing, Frank?
Yo,
We are running multiple screens tonight.
How are you guys?
Doing okay. Doing okay.
You driving, Lee?
I am. I am. 35 minutes from the house.
Oh, are you listening to Radar Love?
6 days on the road. On the road.
Oh, 6 days on the road. There you go.
Yes, sir. Man, I'm glad they finally got that mess over there east of Rolla cleaned up, finished up.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was crazy, wasn't it?
It looked like a freaking war zone, man. There was constantly trucks and hoods and bumpers and everything about through that area in the middle.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I go through there twice a week. Huh.
Yeah, I see Dave here on these.
It looked like a freaking war zone, man. There was constantly trucks.
Uh-oh.
In the middle.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just muted for a second as I get some audio queued up. We're professionals behind the scenes.
So let's see. So I can watch the chat on YouTube while you're doing this. That's cool.
It looks like Smoke Slinger Pitts is also joining us this evening in the YouTube chat. Excellent. We're building up some momentum here.
Geez, Dave, when you go, man, you go big, don't you?
Oh yes, we have another camera set up next to me to do
Cool.
Here
Hey,
comes.
Patrick, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. Hey, Mark. This is Dave's show tonight.
So we've got 4 people online watching us, and we've got a few more in the room. I'm going to give it 2 more minutes, maybe a little bit less than that, and we're going to be ready to rock. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mark. I appreciate it. It's going to be an exciting night. It's my first going live here with Smoker Builder on Zoom. And of course, we're broadcasting globally tonight on YouTube, coming to you live and direct on this Friday the 13th.
Cool. Yeah, so just to give everybody some context that's watching here, so this is Dave's first live stream here on the Smoker Builder U in the back room here. And so he's also got a YouTube channel that he is streaming this on. Welcome to the guys on the YouTube channel there. But the intention of this, we're doing a new series. You guys remember we were doing in Smoker Builder U, we were doing the barbecue pit engineering online courses, and this is a new series we're going to do. And Dave's got a really strong background with pizza ovens and brick pits and just all of that kind of stuff. And the next few weeks, we're going to be learning from Dave here a lot of this. So welcome, guys. Anyway, take her away there, Dave, whenever you're ready. We can still banner or whatever you want to do. I just wanted the guys in Smoker Builder U to get the full picture.
He's happy as a horde of pecker patch.
Oh, yeah. So tonight we're going to be going over a concept that I find fairly easy. We're all used to, as children, playing with blocks, whether those would be, let's just say, Legos, or in the case of my kids, 2-year-olds, we've got these mega blocks to play with. They're going to be using these later on as an example of how we transition the natural primitive ability of using fire and stone and rocks and bricks up to what we call adult bricks today, those being cinder blocks, those being our bricks that we use to build chimneys, and some of the other materials easily sourced, available at local hardware stores. Trying to stay on my list of topics here. So what the main point here is that as we're building our pits using cinder blocks and bricks, it's affordable, it's versatile, and it allows us to create delicious outdoor cooking solutions. Now, many of you are aware that pit barbecue goes back quite a ways. It's done in places even today, such as Snow's Barbecue. You might be familiar with a young lady by the name of Tootsie. You might also be familiar with, let me get some of these other photographs that we have up here up. Let's see how we share those. I've got an entire index of information to be able to share. So let me first see how we're going to get that up here. This is new to me. I'm pulling in pictures. Let's see how we're going to get this. Well, you know what? I'll read them off to you. So for example, we've got Tootsie from over at Snow's Barbecue. Then we've got a gentleman by the name of Rodney Scott, who also cooks pit barbecue. He's known for doing whole hog. He does ribs. Then we've got individuals such as those from, let me get his name up here. Boy, Black's Barbecue in Austin, Texas. I remember in 2019, it was the first time I ever had a true Central Texas barbecue rib, a beef rib. That first bite is what inspired me back in 2019 to go ahead and start to formulate this idea of creating a barbecue pit made out of bricks in my yard. And it was through that that I eventually got into the evolution of learning how to perfect that technique and prepare those 3-bone plate ribs, the prime plate ribs that we're able to get from some of our finest purveyors, or even Top Cab, that certified Angus beef. So with that said, let me see how I'm going to pull this up here. Oh, I think I went over to the other camera that we're not supposed to be on. Nope, I didn't. Got many cameras going at the same time. We're going triple cameras tonight. We have somebody else joining us. Let me pull all of our people in. We got 3 more people that join us this evening. Everybody's now admitted. Let me pull this in for those that are watching live. Let's go over to let's see, how am I going to share this one? You think I prepared? I prepared all the excitement, but now it's about preparation of the screens. The first thing I want to pull up.
You got this. You're doing fine.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Is I have a PowerPoint presentation. Of course, I came set with that, and people are welcome to join in at any point that there's some curiosity. Oh, I'm going to get this. I know I am. Let's see how we do this. Sure hope I can figure this out soon. Let's see if it.
You got the. You mean just
share?
There it is. Okay.
I got it. Shared. That's it. And let's make sure that as we're sharing this, that when I start,
it is
the right place. Oh, there we go. We got it. Okay, perfect. So this happens to be a cinder block offset smoker. It's very simple to be able to fabricate, as you can see here. All of the materials are readily available at a place like a big box store like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, Ace Hardware, Menards, or any of the local hardware stores by you. And just by looking at this, you can see we have cinder block right here on the top. We've got ourselves a cover that's made out of steel or aluminum, and then we've got a nice chimney in the back. Here's some dimensions that I was able to pull in. And what we're looking at here is about 8.5 by 2, just a little over 2 3/4 feet high. And the depth on our pit gets us, the width of our pit gets us to about 3.5 feet. This happens to be an area that I would suggest that you go ahead and work with. You can build your brick pit just about on top of anything. If you choose to put this on your grass, just understand you're going to burn the grass. My advice is that you clear out an area. Possibly if you have rocks, maybe you put down some sand on top of that and tamp it down. If you're going directly onto the ground with dirt, it's still advisable that you put some sand down. And that's because as you're cooking, a lot of that grease and the drippings are going to come down onto the fire. Not to mention, you're cooking directly on the ground. So whatever is down there, it's going to burn. And that's why I suggest putting down a layer of sand over the dirt, especially if that dirt has any type of moisture on it, because you're going to be burning directly on that ground. So here's a picture of just a simple pallet of bricks. I'm sure you'd be able to easily locate this on one of the side aisles of your local big box store. In this case, we're looking at cinder blocks that are 8 by 8 by 16. The pit that's built here required 60 bricks, plus you needed 8 by 8 by 8 cinder blocks for the corners. And then for the caps, we're going 8 by 2 by 16. It's advisable to use clay bricks, although it's not necessary. The rationale behind the clay bricks is when we're looking at building our chimneys. I have found that it's not really necessary to use them. However, it does give a nice look. And with using the holes, it does allow for a little bit more of closing off the air supply so that your chimney pulls just a little bit harder. And here what we've got is framing out our pit. Now, if we were just simply building a pit, and I think that we should just start with that simple pit. So what we're looking at here, if we were to finish this off the first 2 levels, and then we took our expanded metal and laid it across, or possibly even put down some flattened pieces of steel, and then across this laid out our expanded steel, we could then simply add on just one more level. And by doing that, we would have ourselves a pit. Now, this isn't large enough necessarily to cook your hogs on, but it's great for making your ribs. It's great for your brisket. It's great for your chicken. And all we would need at this point is to put a piece of metal right over the top, and that would close off our pit. Now, I know that there's some people out there asking, okay, but what about when I need to feed the pit with charcoal? I need to put more heat in. Or I'm looking for an area where there's say a channel for the air to be drawn into. Well, what I would do, let me see if I can draw this for you. Yes, I can. Is, let's go with a pen, is right here. I would take this brick right here and I would turn it sideways. By doing so, I would expose these 2 holes right here. And that would give us the air draft that would be coming in. The other option is to open this up completely, take that brick out all the way, and that way you're able to get some of the coals in. One of the other ways that I found that's pretty simple is by taking the cover off and simply pulling the metal back. If you're able to get your hot coals in that way. But for this pit, since we're looking at just one step ahead, we're looking at that offset pit. I'm going to pretend that we eliminated all of our air gaps and this area is closed off. So here you can see that we have our firebox that's nicely built out. And one more time, right here, as you can see, there's that brick that I was talking about that we would turn sideways. So this area right here, let me get this out of the way and then go to our laser pointer. So this area right in here, that's actually where we're going to be building our fire. So in this area, right on the ground, we're going to put our hot coals, we're going to put our wood. And by doing so, the airflow that's coming through this brick right here allows for the fire to then follow through and come through these 3 channels. And you can see that right in this picture. Here's that gap that we have. This is going to allow that airflow. To control that, it's as simple as putting another brick in front or possibly even using an extra piece of wood. So that way you control the amount of airflow that's coming in. The closer that we put that brick or the closer that we put that piece of wood, the less air that's going to get pulled through. Very similar to like what we do on our offset smokers when we open and close the door, or we set it to a certain amount of notches. Same concept, but in this case, we're doing it on a more primitive version. This picture right here, this is the best example of how I like to build. Again, I don't like to necessarily use that extra red brick because I like to stick with one block and one block only. And in this case, what we would have done is right across this area. This is where we would have put that metal shield, or we would have taken plywood and laid the plywood over the top. And that way, as we're covered up, the smoke that we're getting off of our meats and dripping down onto our hot coals and keeping our food tasty and smoky and juicy, this is where our air would escape right in through here and up through the holes and right out through the top. Now, there's something that I want to mention as we're going through this. See all these holes right here? They're all wide open. And the reason for that is the portability of this pit. Someone who has done this a couple of times will be able to build this in a half hour. If you're doing this with your buddies and you're having a couple of drinks, maybe it takes you 90 minutes or 2 hours because you need to have that ice cold, refreshing beverage of choice. However, if this was going to be a permanent install, all of these holes that we have here, we could fill this in with Quikrete, and then taking rebar, we would drive rebar right down into these holes, and that would be a permanent installation. Something like this would then last us for decades in our yard, or if you have a pole barn, right there in the pole barn, as long as you have some type of ventilation.
Dave, I'd like to point something out. Something I saw Tina Cannon do, if you guys know who Tina Cannon is. She built a brick pit at her place that was a portable style pit. But what she did, instead of like mortaring everything in and backfilling with Quikrete and stuff, she just backfilled with pea gravel. And that pea gravel was big enough for white chat that it kept those blocks from sliding. And you can you don't want to pack it too hard every layer, but you can pack it a little bit to kind of get that more solid in there. That way, if you ever decided if you were semi-committed, but you still wanted to pull apart, kind of like what I'm considering with my brick pit out here that I want to build, you can still bust it apart and move it, especially if you could recover that chat, then you could reuse it when you set up the next time for a while. Have you seen anybody do that?
I've seen people fill it in with small pebbles, and if the pea stones you're talking about is what I'm thinking of, then yes, I've seen people fill it in. What's nice about that is it gives you more structure and rigidity. And you're correct in stating that at the same point, when you want to break this down, you just simply lift the blocks up, and your small rocks just fall right out. And again, it's also providing insulation within the bricks. So where filling it in with cement or rocks gives us that insulation. In the cases where we're doing a build like this, it is an idea that's coming to mind, and I know that somebody's thinking out there. As this gets hot, we're going to end up popping bricks. They're going to crack. They're going to break. Look, for $1.38, it's okay. Let it go.
That's true.
Just it is what it is. And over time, the bricks are going to get discolored. They're going to crack. You're going to get stress fractures in them. When you start packing them with other materials, you're giving it that much more stability. You're also, over time, drying the bricks out and the material inside. And that's something that later on in the coming weeks, as we start to get into other types of pits that we build, namely pizza ovens, we're going to want to add moisture to our bricks before we start placing them down with the mortar, so that the moisture in the mortar isn't absorbed into the bricks. But that's a future discussion coming up when we get to our pizza ovens. So what we're looking at here in this picture, now our pit is nice and built, and you get in two different angles. So here's a completed pit. We put some capstones over the top where those holes would have been. This is very much finished off. But when we're looking at ways to be able to cover this, like I had said earlier, there's two different ways to go about this. Well, actually three. There's corrugated aluminum. There's steel plate that could be used. And you want to make sure that the steel plate that you use is a food grade. Sometimes the materials, when they're making these, especially with galvanized steel, have chemicals that they use. And if you've never heated it up, you've never burnt it off, it's a consideration that you might not want to buy that type of steel, because those chemicals that are in there have a high likelihood of getting into your foods. So what we're looking at here is, if we were to take a piece of plywood, and then on top of that, we were to add a heat shield insulation. And in this case, we're looking at 4 feet by 6 feet. Simply using a staple gun and stapling this on, this would give us that reflective material, so that as the heat is rising up, as that radiant heat is coming off the fire, it's then radiating right back down onto our foods, back onto our proteins and our veggies to cook them. It also gives one more layer of insulation. What you can't see here, something that I've done, and actually it says it right here: fasten 2 pieces of hinges in the middle and handles. Adding on handles that you find at the hardware store makes this a lot easier to be able to move around. In fact, taking a drill and simply drilling a hole into your plywood allows you to add a thermostat, so that you know what your pit is cooking at. It's nice to be able to know that you're able to maintain that temperature, but it's not a make it or break it. Same thing here when we get to testing the temperatures of our meat. If we constantly keep opening and closing the top, we're going to allow all that radiant heat, all that smoke, and all that flavor to come out. And at the same time, we're allowing a ton of oxygen to get onto our fire, and then it's really going to get hot. So we want to limit the amount of times that we're taking the cover off. And that's something that over time we get more comfortable with. Unlike our barbecues where we're constantly looking and looking, you just start to get that innate feeling after you're cooking to know how long something's been on and about what temperature, so you know when to come back, when to flip it, when to wrap it, and when to put it back on.
Hey, Dave, Belt
Yes.
Loop 29 on YouTube has a question about fire brick. He's wondering if you have to use fire brick in any part of this.
That's a great question. So one of the things that I would mention is if you're going to make this as a long-term install, that in order to insulate it, if that's something you're interested in, and keeping the cost down, is to use what we call a landscaping grout. Very simple, very inexpensive. Versus using some of these other grouts that are out there, they're rated to like 3,000 degrees. There's something that you would use in your furnace or your fireplace when it's being built. In this case, if we were to use that landscaping grout, comes in a tube, and it also comes, when I say a tube, it comes in a tube that you can use in a caulking gun. It also comes in larger formats. Simply putting that onto the back of your fire brick, and then you have to go slow with this. You need it to be able to stick to the side of your cinder block, and then give it time to be able to cure. And little by little, you build the levels up all the way around. That's a great way to be able to insulate your pit when we're looking at those long-term installs. And again, later on, when we start to get into some of the pizza ovens, insulation is very important. And we're going to see fire brick come into place there, different types of stone, different types of insulation, using wool, using sand, silica, and without getting too far into that, we're not going to use that much rebar when it comes to doing the permanent construction. Even if we're looking here, just as an example, if you were going to build this, excuse me, onto a concrete footing, let's say you're going to build a concrete pad, I would suggest that chicken wire be used, and possibly even using, if we're using rebar, we would want to use a synthetic type of material. That way, as the rebar is in there, we don't start to get that staining that can come through from the rebar beginning to rot and rust, and that more rusting and starting to show through our base. But again, that's a discussion that's coming up in a couple of weeks from now. It's a preview. So what we've got here is a rebar grate support. It's a little bit more difficult to see, but right inside our firebox is clay bricks. So getting back to Belt Loop 22, in this temporary structure, that red brick that we have and sand is acting as that thermal insulator. It's also giving us the opportunity not to scorch the ground. So if you remember earlier, I had mentioned that we wanted to put sand down, that being in the cooking area. Well, in this case, the cooking area is now separate because we're looking at the offset smoker, not just that direct fire pit. So in this case, we have some dirt down. This is where we would build our fire. And we've got that insulation around the outside to prevent the cracking and the pitting in the bricks. When they crack, it's not suddenly going to come down like we have an avalanche. It'll crack. It's fine. A little bit of heat escaping doesn't hurt anybody. And on the next build, for $1.38, you'll get yourself another brick. Or if you happen to be passing by a construction site, and I'm not encouraging doing this, there tends to be tons of bricks sitting there when they're putting up structures. Don't do it, because we're not 16 years old anymore. So in this photo here, now we're looking at actual rebar that is inserted. So in this case, this would be more similar to if we were going to do our hog cook. Why I say that is the hog is a lot heavier than when we're putting on a few dozen racks of ribs or pork butts and our briskets. So what I would suggest is, and this is now 1, 2, 3 levels high, I might go to level 2, then put in my rebar. What we can see here is that in this case, we're drilling holes right into our brick and then sticking our rebar in. What I've found is if we're not going to use rebar, to use flat steel. Where you would find in your hardware store the expanded metal, right in that same aisle, probably right next to it, are flat bars of steel. Laying those flat bars of steel down, and I would suggest this is very wide. I would go probably about every 8 to 10 inches or so, put a steel plate across. And by doing that, the bricks tend to sit a little bit more evenly as we're building up level to level. And then put your expanded steel right on top of that and sandwich it in between with the bricks. Now you have enough support to be able to put your hog on there or to put heavier items. If we were to looking at a pit this size, if we were simply to put this expanded metal right on there, it's going to bow. It gets hot, and the weight on there is going to start to take what we want as a flat piece, and it's going to begin to dip down. This dipping down is going to then create the meat to want to kind of pull itself into the middle. And the juices that are coming down, even though they're dripping, now they start to follow the pathway of least resistance, and they start to follow down the expanded metal and then fall into one place. They start to drip there instead of evenly dripping over our fire. And then we get that delicious smoke and delicious flavor coming right back up into our meats. Got quite a few people dropping in.
Awesome. Brother Sammy's here.
So with the leftover block, you can use that as a damper for your incoming fire vent. It's very easy to slide it back and forth. You leave the stack vent open at all times. The only time that I've found that I've wanted to close it off is when this thing is really pulling, and that tends to be in the beginning. If I was, in this case, just getting a really good fire going, and I wanted to take some of those coals and start to pitch them from the offset side over to the other side, I'm going to get a really big fire going. With that big fire, I'm going to start to take those coals and pitch them onto the fire pit side rather than my offset side. And then as that fire starts to die out a little bit, at that point, I can now easy slow down my chimney, and I can allow it open, wide open. So it's pulling from one side, sucking the air through. We're getting that nice offset flavor. The air is spinning all the way through, coming through our bricks, and then through our brick opening in our cinder blocks, pulling into our cook chamber. We're getting that same pull right through, smoke's coming up, the flavor's coming up, and then right out to our chimney. Unlike our offsets where we have a smoke collector, that's not an option here. So everything we're doing is going back to that primitive technique of building a pit and then adding just that little bit more on. Any questions at this point? I tend to talk a lot.
Hey, it's your first time. That's great. You're doing awesome.
Thank you.
So one thing I would say, I really like the part where you were talking about the bricks on edge, standing up on edge around the bottom and the sand in there to kind of hold them up. That's probably the method I'll use. And then I was almost thinking like angle, just because it's a lot more rigid, if you're going to do like big, heavy hogs. But I suppose you could set that angle with the open side of the V down maybe,
Right.
and then put expanded over the top of that. And you wouldn't, like if you use regular 3/4 number 9 in there, maybe that would hold pretty good. And a cooking grate that's what we normally use for a cooking grate. So I think it would be pretty stout, going through there. So
Yeah, this
I
is
don't know.
this is that first pit that you build. I'm going to go over to camera number 2. Let's.
You got a lot of windows open.
Oh, I do. Oh, you can see everything at once.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right.
I was like,
trying-
what the heck?
Oh boy. I know. I have to figure out now how to stop sharing that one. There we go. Now
There you
we're back
go.
here. Perfect. Yeah, I got a lot of windows. You're right. What I was trying to do, and it didn't work out so well, was to get these a little bit bigger. That's okay. We'll get to that. Those are pictures of the build when I took my son in about, let's see, this is 2024. So this will be 4 years ago. Back in 2020, during COVID, I took him over to Lowe's. And after I had sketched out on the dining room table what I wanted to build, and unfortunately my wife threw that in the trash. She took my sketch and threw it out because I left it on the table too long. These were let's go back to that again. I'm all over the place. You love this. See how we're gonna get this one. Let's share my desktop. Let's see if let's see if you can see what I'm doing. It says screen sharing. Let's see if this one comes up. Can you see this picture?
I should see your file folder, but usually I have to open the picture and then share the picture and then share my screen when I do that.
Then let's do that. Lesson learned. Lesson learned. So let's grab this one, move this one back over here, take this picture, put this here, and now try this again. Let's see. Can you see that one?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So this is at Lowe's. And Lowe's was nice enough to tell me, here's a broom, sir. When you and your son are done playing Lego blocks, just put the bricks back, put them on a cart. So this was the initial build. This was the thought. I framed this out on the floor at Lowe's during COVID-19 at its height. And they had no problem with this. So as you can see here in my build, this was where I had the mouth opening up. And if I was to just build this as a pit, I would have taken this brick and I would have kept it face up with all the holes and just built layer upon layer, gone at least 2 up, then put my expanded metal across, and then probably put 1 to 2 more layers above this. But you're going to see the end project as we get through it. Let me give you the next one. Let's get rid of this one. We don't need that one anymore. Let's go to the next one, just to give you an idea of what we're building at. So here's the next one. Here you can see here's his little feet right here. This would be the opening from where we're going to be pulling our air through.
Yeah. So on firebox volume, like, are you trying to calculate anything there? Are you trying to do 30%? Do you just run with it?
No, I'll tell you, Frank, at this point, I was so inexperienced. It was more about the thrill of finally putting together a project and learning from my mistakes. So what I had originally done, this brick was turned sideways. And then I said to myself, no. Let me build a completely separate area where I'm going to build this is going to be my firebox. So in the last picture, let's go back to annotating. We'll get all of our.
I like this layout way better.
Okay, so in this one, where's the pen? I can't get the pen up. So the brick that was turned beforehand, which is not turned now, that all became one solid area to be able to be my smoke chamber, let's just say. It was then after the fact that I'm there, I had said to my son, maybe it's a better idea that we start to do this as an offset. That way I'm able to control the heat a little bit easier. That's why I had turned this one the way that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Out of this, you're right. Having multiple screens does start to get a little confusing.
Big time operator, though.
Mm-hmm. We got it all rocking at the same time. Now I got to figure out how to get out of this one.
16.
Oh, there we go. So let's go to stop sharing this one. Oh, you know what? Actually, I can keep sharing. All I have to do is get you the next one. Very nice. Let's go over here and start sharing this bad boy. Now you'll start to see the evolution of where we're going. So let's go to
what. By the way, real quick, there are 2 different kinds of these blocks. There's one kind that's an 80-pound block, which is the more expensive one. And then you can get like the economy blocks, which are lightweight. So if you're worried about cracking, maybe spend some money for your firebox, get the heavier ones. It's still going to crack if you build a ridiculous fire, but it's probably not that big of a deal.
Here we go. That's the stop share button. There we go. It's on the other screen. I'm working 3 screens at the same time. All right, so here we go. This will give you another idea of the size of this pit. What I've done here, and now it's starting to come together. And let's get back to the annotation. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So what we have here is this is going to be the area where I'm going to start to put in the chimney. At this point, I was trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. And you'll see how that comes together. This down here is our intake. And then what I've done is I turned 2 bricks upwards right here. So as the smoke is coming in this way, it's flowing through the holes and then round and round and round through here. And then eventually this is going to end up turning into a chimney where our smoke's going to come out of. How's that for an NFL play?
That's a great play. The other thing, Jason dropped it in here in the chat on Zoom a couple times about the concrete cracking and stuff. Another thing you can do if you're a little bit worried about it, there's this stuff called refractory cement, and it mixes like a mortar, and you can literally just like paste it on like plaster right on the surface of those blocks, and it's what they use in kilns and stuff. You can actually like insulate with that stuff to prevent that if it's an issue. Or like Dave said, put the fire brick on there with that whatever that cement was he's talking about.
Yeah, the cheap way of going about it is using the landscaping cement. The material that you just mentioned, that's when we're starting to get more advanced. That's a professional grade build. You're using real materials for a real build, and I'm hoping that you're getting paid to do that job, because that's the real deal. So this last picture that I'm showing you here, this is the final build. This is what it looked like all put together in the shed / pole barn area. Can everybody see what I have here?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the final product. I'm sorry that I don't have the covers on here. I started cooking on it. This is before my YouTube days. This is before I knew that I would eventually have the opportunity to present this type of material. So what you can see here, going back right here, this is our area where we're going to allow our air to flow through into our firebox. Then we've got our bricks set up inside. Whereas our fire is burning, we've got our heat, we've got our smoke. It's being pulled through here into our cook chamber where it's round and round and round into our chimney and up and out. And that's a good example of how to build an offset brick pit for under $250.
Yeah, on the cheap. That's the
Bricks
catch.
did you say you used in that?
This build that I have over here, this is going to go well over. I think that I had purchased, because I didn't realize how many bricks I was going to need. I believe that at this point I had purchased about 80 bricks of 8 by 8 by 16. And then I had probably another 20 bricks or so of these 8 by 8 by 8 blocks like these. That was a good question. I need some questions from the peanut gallery, please.
So looking right now, I'm looking on Lowe's website right now. Those are $3.10 a piece. And then I looked them up on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm seeing them anywhere from $2 to $2.50. There's some that are $1, but they're usually all beat up and broken down and that kind of stuff. But you can figure $3 a piece if you're buying brand new blocks.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's that might probably is a national price at this point.
I don't know. It may vary from different place to place at Lowe's. You know, this is looking at
Right.
my local one, but it probably wouldn't be too much more at different places. Concrete's pretty uniform.
Yeah.
One of the harder materials to source, for as far as for a cover goes, and that's why I'm using the methodology behind using plywood and some sheeting on the back. When we start to get into things like 16 gauge steel plates, usually Lowe's and Home Depot don't have that. You have to go to another store to have it. If I was using that type of material, I would probably get 2 pieces of 4x4 16 gauge steel plates and then 1 piece of 2x4 16 gauge steel plates. I would lay the 2 pieces of 4x4, one with the lip right over the other one. And then when I want to get in, I would take one side and slide it right over the other. And then I can get into one area. And then when I want to go to the other side, of course, at this point, it's important that you're wearing some type of working gloves, especially when you're dealing with steel, that you can pull one side back, pull the other one up, and slide it over the top. That way, when you're cooking, let's say in this case, you're doing your briskets, you're doing your pork butts, you're able to get to one section, do what you have to do over there, slide it across, slide the other one over, get to the other side. That way, we're not constantly opening up the entire cover. What we'll see, and now that I know how to share pictures with everybody, let me get off of this picture here, and let's stop sharing this one and get to an example of what the big boys do down at the restaurants. Many of you may be aware of what their systems look like. That's a little bit too small. Let's see if we have a bigger photo, something that's here we go. All right. So this is the name of the market. I'm going to allow Frank to pronounce it because I say the name. Oh, Cruises Market. Thank you. So this one's going to come from Cruises Market. Let's get that photo shared.
Which we could talk about that one all night if we wanted
Oh, it's
to.
coming because we're going to get into food too. So here, hopefully,
By the
you can
way,
see.
By the way, for my sake, Pitmaster Cruz is not doing well. He's in the hospital right now. That's the man in the photo.
Correct. What you're looking at here is a traditional barbecue pit. We've got our fire on one side, and this is an open pit barbecue. I say that when we're looking at the fire pits. There's other places that are in Texas that are just like this too. So if you happen to go down there and you have your kids and suddenly you turn the corner, there's nothing preventing your kids from walking right into that fire. It's an open fire. It draws right through the pit. And these are nice long pits. These are permanent installs. And the covers here, which operate just on a hinge up and down, all have a counterweight, similar to like a window sash that's just hanging on a chain or hanging on a rope. And that helps you be able to lift these because, as you can imagine, if you're constantly opening and closing all day long, your arms start to get tired. These places that I've been to, like Black's, like, say this market again for me. Because I say Cruises Market. This is these, or even Louis Mueller's place. They all have setups like this. East Snow's Barbecue has a setup like this, where they feed their pit either with hot coals or they're burning a live fire. The heat is pulled directly through, and they open and close that cover very rarely, only when they're pulling the meats off for service, or else they stay on there and they're able to know where the hot zones are, where the cool zones. And by cool zones, that's really where they're just keeping the meat held for service. The closer you get to that fire, the hotter it's going to get. So they're working that entire pit from one end to the other.
Yeah. The catch is that they're not too worried about a difference in temperatures either on this pit. They've got a zone that's hot, and then they avoid that zone and they use it to their advantage whenever they need it. But like for doing briskets, they'll run those briskets in the middle to the end. That's why they've got so many of those pits in there. So, because there's multiple sets of those pits in that market.
So here's another great example of building something on the side of your house in the driveway. This is that traditional pit. On the top of this, we have that corrugated aluminum.
Hold
Oh,
up.
there's no lights on in this. I didn't know you were doing anything. I thought you were just sitting there waiting on me.
Who's give me Odo?
You got to
Lee, we
mute.
waiting on you?
There
We'll mute Lee.
you go.
Oh,
He's good now. Sorry.
all right, good. Lee, you can unmute at any point. Sound like you were having a conversation. So this is a very, very simple pit. You can see here that there's even pavers that were added in between to create that just a little bit more flair, a little more layer. But it also, I would think that it also gives the opportunity to identify where your cooking level is on here. And I say that because if you're laying that steel across here, this is where you have that expanded steel on the inside. You know that when you take your cover off, exactly the level where your food is at. And here, again, we can see that in order to control the amount of airflow that's coming through, it's just a simple sheet of metal that's placed on the front in order to control the volume of air that's coming through, and corrugated aluminum across the top to be able to get to your food, and you just slide one piece right over the other.
Yeah.
What I want to demonstrate to you now using my kids' bricks, because and now we're going to try the other camera. Let's see how that's going to work. This is a one-time chance. Let's see if this works. Okay, so
there you go.
here we go. All right, what I'm telling you that this is as simple as a child to be able to make. This is my 2-year-old. He's going to be 3 in 2 weeks from now. This is his Mega Blocks. So we all have some type of block set that we played with as kids. And all we're looking to do here, and I'm going to make this as simple as can be. And what we really should do, let's go 3 over here, and then we're going to go 4 wide. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just, it's 1, 2, 3. Get 4. We all on camera? Or do I need to back that up? Maybe we can back that up just a little
Yeah,
bit.
you're doing great.
Or, you know what? We'll go this way. There we go. Maybe that gives us. Yeah, I got to come in more. Okay, so this is an example of just a fun project with your kids to be able to build. It's kind of a daddy and me project, best way to put it. Now we'll have to get into some of the other bricks that we have here. And it really is just as simple as building just like this, where here we go, 1, 2, and 3, and that's it. I mean, it's as simple as that, and you're good to go. You're ready to start.
soldier stack the next layer.
Right, and then you come in, and there's 2 ways to do this. You can obviously just put one right on top of the other. Let's get that a little bit closer so you can see it. You can obviously put one right on top of the other, or you can do, if this is something that if it's not a permanent build where you're trying to pour your concrete down into the holes, or that you're going to keep it there for a while, there's always that cross way of doing it like this, so that now you've covered up those holes and you've created just that little bit of insulation because you've got one over the other as you're going through it. Does that make sense in my build?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if we were doing this on a smaller scale, that's the only way I'm going to be able to demonstrate this, is by then taking, I'm going to use this block, turn it sideways. And by doing that, now we've got that airflow that's able to come through. And to keep this nice and small, nice and tight, we're just going to go 1 by 1 here. And then we would take 2 and go sideways. And that's going to create our draft to come in. And then we're able to come right in, up and over as we're building on both sides. Okay, and we're building it just a little bit higher and a little bit higher. And this is as simple as it gets, building a backyard offset pit that you could bring to a buddy's house, that you can do at your friends. That is, if you wanted to make that quick hog cooker, that's what we have. here we'd start here, and unfortunately, these I can't turn sideways. I did have one of these that I was able to find. This is what I'm going to call our firebox door. Like that, he had one brick. That's our firebox door. Now, why I bring this up is that it's very, very easy to start to take a simple project and then start to Davify it like I do and go overboard. By overboard, this would be like your boiler door. Now we're getting crazy. So if you have accessibility to old boilers, like those that you find in large metropolitan cities, they start to rip them out when they switch over the oil or the coal-fired over to a different material, usually the coal-fired. These doors weigh a ton. They're great, but you need to have some type of ability when it comes to masonry. And getting a little bit ahead, not too much ahead, this would be framed out, let's just say, with cutting
Angle
a piece
iron.
of wood. And then with that, then we would start to build our brick up and around this. And then this would be, this is a permanent install. This is not something you're doing with your buddies in the backyard with a couple of beers. This is the type of project that you do over a couple of weekends, or you have a crew of guys that come over and make sure every day that there's pizza and beer, and they work with you. And that's how we start to get a little bit overboard, building little by little. So I'm sure people are interested in food next, but any questions, any concerns?
Yeah. So Dave, something that I would probably wind up doing, I think, is if you look at the Cruise Market pits, though they had that open firebox that was just wide open where they were throwing logs in there.
Yes.
And that's a long pit though. So they're dependent on a lot of air running through that pit. Plus they've got the flue at the other end that's pretty tall so that they get enough draw going through that pit. I think that's probably the direction that I'm going with what I want to build. Have you ever messed with an open pit like that? Have you ever ran one like that?
Going back quite a let's just go like almost 15 to 20 years ago, almost 2 decades ago. I was in Florida, and that is exactly what a relative of mine had done. And they were doing all different types of swamp animals on there. And it was a true open fire. And then we would draft. The air somehow pulled itself right through outdoors, right through this thing. And it didn't make a difference at 3 o'clock every day in the afternoon, we got rain. This thing just kept huffing and puffing and pulling through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking like I either want to do that or the other way I would roll is probably like what Myron Mixon's pit is that's on that memories class that he does. If you remember, because he's got he said they were his grandpa's or his dad's old coal burners that are outside where he makes the embers. And then of course you'd have to have some kind of an opening at the bottom there where you could pitch coals down the length of that pit.
Right.
So if I was going to do that, I was thinking like this is of course a temporary pit, but I think if I was going to do that, I would wind up using like some 2-inch angle that ran the length of that so that I could have some bricks missing, I think, out of that. So you could use that to bridge the gap between whenever you got a block out in the middle of air, but you want to keep it up in place, I think. And I don't know. I guess you have to do something to block off the bottom of that one block to keep it from drawing, I guess, huh?
Yes.
So
Or
what
else
do you
it
do?
just
Just
makes
put
you
like,
pull in the air.
so you just put down a row of like some capstones or something, I guess, and then set your blocks on top of that, maybe
That's not a bad idea.
on top of the angle.
Yeah, that would. I think that's
Or
a fairly good assumption. You would know better than me. You have 17 years of pit building experience. That's what makes you.
But I ain't no Mason. I remember I wanted to go to Mason school in Votech, and Mom said no. She wouldn't let me go. I don't know what was up with that. She must have had something in her head she didn't like about it. But anyway, she also told me She also told me I had to go work on the railroad, and I didn't want to do that.
No, we're not working on the railroad. So would this be an example of what you might be considering, like similar
Yes.
to okay.
That's version 1 pit
Yeah.
that I'm talking.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing
I dig,
these
I
mason
dig.
bricks like this, they're incredible when it comes to color. The build, a lot of these are made of clay. Now I'm starting to see them made of other materials, recycled materials. The only downside is you need a lot of them. You're dealing with small bricks. When we're dealing with the cinder blocks, we're able to get a lot more real estate done with one brick versus these clay bricks. However, clay bricks, used as fire brick is great. It's excellently insulated. As long as they're not the ones that have the holes in the middle of them, then you're able to just simply put one right on top of the other, just like you were building yourself a brick wall. And in fact, in this picture, you can see we don't have multiple layers. It's a thin layer that's coming in, and that heat is pulling right through there into that cook chamber. There's a lot of simplicity in what we're able to do.
Yeah. That wouldn't pass code,
No.
I don't think.
So let me pull up a couple of
Only in
images.
Texas.
Only in Texas. Yeah. Grandfathered in.
So let's get
No
a couple.
insurance.
Ooh, we got to eat. It's important that we have our food.
Shout out to Chris from Green Money Fab. He's in the house.
Chris is going to be joining us in a couple of weeks when we talk about pizza ovens. Chris built a unique oven using the end of a 200, I believe it was a 250-gallon propane tank. He cut that off, and he was able to fabricate this into a pizza oven. I had the opportunity in September, it was October, to hook up with Chris at the Catskill Mountain Makers Camp. And he walked me around, showed me all his pits, introduced me to other people, gave me a hands-on welding lesson of doing stick welding with the guys at weld.com. And the next day, I wasn't there for that. He lit that pizza oven. And from what I understand, people were quite impressed with his pizza oven build, which is
Cool.
Very unique, a very interesting way of building a pizza oven using recycled pieces of metal, repurposing what he already had.
Awesome.
What do we have here with regards to, here we go. Here's some good eating. Oh, we got to eat. So let's close out this one right here and share the next one. What we've got here's a nice little example of some food, simple things that we can make. So we've got our sausage, we've got some ribs, we've got on here what looks like some brisket that's cut up. We get you another one because I love food. That's what this is all about. Having a cooker is great, but it's what we put on our cooker. It's what we're able to prepare that makes our cookers that much more efficient and effective to our wives when they ask, why do we keep building and buying more? This is the rationale behind it. We have to have a purpose. They have no problem buying all these shoes, then we have to have a reason why we keep buying our pits. Here's a little bit closer, and it looks like what we have here is in the back. Let me get that pen up there again. Back here, we've got ourselves that's right, boneless rib. Then we've got ourselves some Texas long hats. We've got our racks of ribs. And this quite possibly right here might be a brisket.
That's a brisket.
So on them sausages like that, how do they get that string in there? Is that all the way through the casing, or what is the deal on that?
No, well, that's tied at the end. So now we're getting into sausage 101. Now I'm really getting excited because I'm the meat stick.
Because I've been talking about that. I've been looking at those, whatever they do. They hang those on the dowels like that.
Yeah, they're just
do?
making that as a really long sausage. Instead of twisting it into 6 or 7 inch links, they twist it into a 12-inch link, and then they curl it together and tie the ends.
Danny's right.
Yeah.
So you're making horseshoes out of them,
Link. They call
and
it
then you're tying it off. That's exactly what it is. you're putting a butcher's knot on each side with a loop to be able to hang it.
Hmm.
That has to be dried first, and then you're putting that on your pit to cook.
Yeah, I won't rabbit trail you too bad. Sorry. I
No,
got
no,
questions.
no. Let's go down that rabbit hole of sausage. That's not a problem.
As long as we
So-
don't
so
get into
the-
hot grill.
So the next question I got about that is, I'm starting to notice that some guys are putting, even in their fresh sausage, like this kind of sausage, like kielbasa, whatever, they're putting just a little douse of cure in there. Is that true? Question mark.
That
So,
might
like,
be
when
what
I make-
guys are doing.
When I'm making like just a good old Texas smoked sausage,
Right.
or whatever, and I want a crispy casing, etc., spray it down with Pam, whatever. My buddy Bill, Sausage Sensei, I haven't asked him this question yet, but I swear he told me he cures some of those links
That's what I
for
do in
different
mine.
reasons.
Yeah, I put curing salt in mine and then leave them in the fridge. If you're going to cold smoke it, you want curing salt in it.
Yeah, if you're cold smoking, that's maybe what the deal is.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's a fresh sausage that you're going to just throw in the fridge and let it chill, then take out and cook, that's fine.
Right
But
away.
you're going to smoke it anytime it's going to be under, 140, 150 degrees for more than 4 hours, you've got to have curing salt in it.
Because I was just wondering that for this situation with these brick pits. So this is not cured sausage. We're cooking it all the way. If I was going to cook this, if I was going to cold smoke this and, let it ride in the fridge for a while before I actually cooked it and served it, like on the grill or whatever, that's when we would cure it.
You can leave it in the
Yeah.
fridge pretty much, for days or even weeks, as long as it stays cold.
If it's cured.
Even if it's not cured, I mean, it's just like leaving raw meat in the fridge. As long as you can leave
Dude,
raw
pork
meat in,
is like a 7-day thing around
yeah,
here.
you don't want to do it much with pork. That's true. That's true.
And she's
If
done.
if it's overnight
No.
or something until you cook it the next day, that's one thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're going to be more than probably 2 days, I would definitely want to cure it.
Yeah. I was just curious. Yeah.
After 2 or 3 days, your pork in the fridge starts to change color too. So I would suggest that when you make your fresh sausage and whether you're using a synthetic milk type of casing, which snaps like from Viscofan, it's great, or you're using natural hog casings, that after you stuff your sausage and then it looks almost like a cone.
Bricker.
Prick the sausage, get the air out, and then take that and put it in the refrigerator at least overnight, if not until the next day completely, and then put that on. What you're doing is you're allowing some of the water and moisture not only to absorb into the casing, but also to evaporate off of the casing. We want to dry it out just that little bit. So when you put that onto your smoker, or you're putting that on your grill, you're putting that right into your cinder block pit. You're at the same time cooking, you're also drying that skin out because that's dry heat that's in there. So when it's done and you pull it off, you're going to get that snap. You're going to get that bite of that sausage. Even when you go to slice it, if you're slicing it into rings or into chunks and pieces, same thing. That skin, if it's done right, is going to hold onto that meat. It's not going to start to peel back and peel off. So Danny's right. If you have the opportunity to do a cold smoke, infuse it with some flavor, dry it out, you've also given yourself the opportunity to be able to store it just a little bit longer than you would have with a fresh product.
Okay.
And there's what I tend to do is if I'm making Italian sausage, I go 100% pork, and I add in some other pieces of pork fat and this and that in order to get the right percentage of meat to fat ratio. But when I'm making my kielbasa, when I'm making my bratwurst, when I'm making some of my other German type of sausages, I take the beef trimmings that I've collected, whether it be from my brisket trimmings or it's from some of my quarter trimmings that I have when I'm breaking down primals, and I'll put that in with the pork. So now I have maybe like a an 80-20, 75-25 mix of pork and beef. And that flavor, when it's infused together, when you're mixing all of that meat and you're seasoning in together, you're not going to know the difference. But the consistency of that sausage, when you bite into it later on, it's a huge benefit for when you're making sandwich type of sausage, or in this case with those big horseshoe rings, for example, like the
Those are
almond.
so cool.
Yeah, that consistency you're going to get out of there is wonderful.
Yeah. Dang. Okay.
I've been doing about 50-50 beef and pork for most of what I've made so far. And it's been phenomenal. But you can go all pork, you can go all beef, whatever.
Yeah.
So when I don't remember, it was probably 2021. I got a call from Randy, the guy that is general manager of Tops Barbecue down in Memphis. It's a big chain down there. They got basically like they took over a whole bunch of Wendy's restaurants and stuff. They're really, really old, but recently they took over some Wendy's restaurants and they put these big block pits inside, big steel doors on the front, 1-inch round bar grates in there, and they cook whole shoulders in there is what they do. And what they do inside them pits, they called me down there to fix the doors and all that. Of course, it was a ridiculous undertaking to rebuild all of that because you're dealing with those old brick chimneys and stuff. But we went down there to look at I went down there to look at all of that, several restaurants, and also was talking to them about their brisket program a little bit. But when I was in there, I noticed that what they're doing is they're taking a bag of charcoal and they're putting 3 bags of charcoal or 4 bags of charcoal in there. They get those charcoals lit. They let that pit run. Everything turns white. I think it's even in the bag when they light it. But then they're throwing shoulders up on top of there. So I imagine a block pit like this is more ideally suited for big muscle meats like that, I guess, is what I'm thinking. Yeah. Like for doing shoulders, a lot of pork like that. Maybe I don't know what it takes to run one of these because I've never done it before. I just know that those guys are shoveling coals. And I guess that's the reason why I'm thinking like I need to build a pit where I can shovel coals in like that from one end or the other and spread them around rather than just building a fire on one end. Have you ran your pit much?
What you're talking about gets us to the next part is the burn barrel and getting out those hot coals going. In that concept, I guess I can go back to the bricks. So I can just show you here. So what I would do is, as I'm building this, I would leave a complete opening, probably on both sides, and then simply have something that I can put across to be able to close that off. And that gives me the opportunity to be able to take the hot coals that I have on the shovel and shovel it right into the pit. That way, if I'm making, like you're saying, that's a great, what you're talking about, it goes down a great concept of how we're going to cook large pieces of meat, not just the pigs, large pieces of like the whole shoulder clod or primals of pork or primals of beef. So in that case, we're putting the hot coals right almost into the corners and then around the perimeter of the pit. The meat's in the middle, the heat's coming up. We want the most amount of heat in the thickest piece of meat. So if we're looking at, in this case, a primal of pig, we're going to want the hottest amount of heat coming up into the ham, because as that meat starts to get smaller and smaller in diameter, as we go down the leg, it's going to take less heat to be able to cook that. And we want to cook the whole thing to the same temperature. About 190 degrees is where we want to be, especially when we're dealing with some of the pork products. If we're looking at an entire shoulder clod, we're going to get that pit beef to the point where we're able to start to pull it apart. High heat isn't what we want. So we're going to continuously shovel the coals underneath, and we're watching to see where it is and using our shovel to spread it out. We're constantly going back to our burn barrel, feeding it with new logs. So as it burns down all night long and all day, we see the beautiful embers coming off the top. We go over our shovel, take that, and shovel that right underneath. And it's a constant process of making sure that you have enough hot coals, not that they're burning, but that they're red, hot, glowing coals, and we spread them out. And over time, those delicious juices that are coming down and hitting the hot coals, you hear that searing noise, all that smoke flavor comes right back in. And as we know, it's probably going to take us a good 14 to 16 hours, maybe even longer, with that low and slow technique to get that beautiful pit beef flavor.
Yeah, I think where this is coming from for me is I went and took Al's. So I did that deal down there with Tops, watched their deal. Then I wound up taking Al Fragoni's live fire class, and we was cooking with embers like that. I've always wanted to go to Myron's memories class, which is, it fills up instantly as soon as he launches one. And it's usually a 6 to 9 month wait to get in. But all of that's really got me interested in going down this rabbit hole with these brick pits, I think, and doing embers and shoulders and all of that stuff. I think I'm into that. And I do know though that I think that they do have to manage the heat, different heat zones, because we've got like bacons and loins and stuff like that. We're trying to keep that. We don't want that to just melt and turn into liquid inside the skin while we're cooking. Mm-hmm. We got to keep like you said, the heat under the shoulders and the butts, and try to manage that somehow. That's definitely a skill set. Pretty intense.
So when we're looking at that whole hog, if we were taking this and doing this more like whether it's a Sam Jones or it's a Rodney Scott, I mentioned these two because they're big names in the hog industry, especially in the Carolinas. They take their hogs and they splay them out. What that means is we're taking from the chest, from the collarbone, splitting right down. So we're losing how do they call this one? From the snooter to the cooter, something like that. They call the nose to the butt.
To the cooter.
There you go. From the snooter to the cooter. They're taking the heads right off the hogs. Yeah. And then they're split. They're splitting the hogs down. They get them a whole hog, take the heads off, split them right down, and then they splay them out. So you have the arms you have the front legs coming out, back legs going back, right open. The way that they cook theirs is that they go first, they're going on the interior side, chest side, directly down. And they're cooking that way. So all they except, well, let's go with Sam Jones, because Sam Jones is going to cook very similar to Al Fragoni does, just with salt. That's it. Water and salt, and that's the whole thing. So let's keep it simple. You're salting the skin, you're salting the inside of the hog. You're laying your hog down, splayed out directly across your expanded steel, and the heat's coming up. The majority of the heat that you're bringing in is under the shoulders, it's under your butts, and there's just a little bit in between, just, to cook the rib meat. The ribs, the bacon, that's going to cook pretty quick. We don't want to render all that fat out. We don't want to get it to the point where it's just going to fall apart, because that's chopped barbecue. That's not pulled pork. After a certain amount of hours, we're then going to take the entire hog. And the way that this is done, the simplest way to do this is before you lay that hog down, you use chicken wire. Take a nice piece of chicken wire and fold it over. So it's almost like a sandwich. We're taking that hog and we're putting it on one side of the sandwich. When we're ready to flip it, we're taking the top of that sandwich, that chicken wire, laying it on top. And with a buddy, we each grab one side and think of it like a bed sheet. We're just going to turn it 180 degrees over. So now the back of that pig, the skin of the pig, is now directly over the fire, and the chest meat. So now the dorsal portion, the back, is directly over the fire. And now our chest, our anterior portion, is now facing up towards the top of our firebox. That's going to give us the opportunity to now cook the underneath. Remember, we're still adding the heat underneath the shoulders. We're adding it underneath our hams. And we're giving it an even cooking surface. At the end, this is where when you see in the videos, guy like Sam Jones, same thing when it comes to Rodney Scott. they take a flashlight, they look underneath at their pig, and what they're looking at that point is the skin. They're looking to get that skin to the point where it's crispy like a potato chip. If we cook our skin the wrong way, we end up with two types of material: leather like a football, or a very, very chewy type of consistency. What Sam Jones does, which is unlike anybody else, is when that pig is finished up, he comes in with a knife and he starts to cut it into quarters, cuts it up into pieces, immediately sticks it into a metal pan, and that's going to go directly to the kitchen. The reason for that is that each quarter has a piece of either a butt portion along with a rib and with bacon, or it's got your ham, a little bit of your rib, and still some bacon in there, and of course you have your loin. What they're taking is that all of that meat and two cleavers and chopping everything up. So you're getting a mixture of every different type of meat and loin and belly that's all in there, and then that's served on a sandwich. When we go over to Rodney Scott, he's not just adding salt. He gets in there and gets in with a mop sauce. Now we're talking a whole nother delicious flavor. So on one end, we have just salt, and then we add in a little bit of our sauces later on, or we go with the mop sauce. When we go mop, now we're getting that delicious flavor. It's getting infused into our meat as it cooks, and there's a technique to how he does it. And he takes them, I believe it's about 1 gallon to 2 gallons, in order to mop his hogs out with his mop. Delicious. And the way that he treats his hogs is when they are now on the interior surface up, he gets in there with a long spoon, looks like a long serving spoon, and he just starts to turn and cut a little bit every so often, and he's twisting that meat and infusing it in with his mop sauce, so it's all cooking together. When he's done, those pieces come off and they're ready for service, and it's done to perfection. In that case, you're now into more of a pulled pork type of consistency, because he's able to just pull the pieces off, make the sandwiches, and make the platters with that. So those are two different modalities of being able to cook whole hog splayed out.
So Rodney Scott.
Yes.
So Rodney Scott, though, is he pulling pork out while that animal's still on the pit, or is he pulling all the pork out at a certain point? Because he's pulling
all the pork out at the end.
At the end, okay.
Now,
so while he's digging with that spoon, is he pulling those bones out and stuff, and the cartilage that ain't broke down, and like picking through? I wonder.
He's taken all that connective collagen and turning that over into the gelatin. And all he's doing by doing that is the liquids, the natural flavor, the natural liquids that are in that pig. He's stirring that through with his mop sauce and being able to spread that natural juice, like say the fats from the bacon, into other areas of the hog that would be more dry, like your loin, for example. The loin doesn't have the marbleization; it doesn't have the same type of fat. So what he's doing is essentially taking the natural juices and liquids and spreading them out to different areas of the hog as he's going through, and then using that mop sauce as well to keep the moisture content up and to keep the flavor profile in there.
Yeah, because I think the Sam Jones method, don't they take some of that skin and cut it up like real crispy and blend that in with their pork when they're finishing that pork off, I think.
It's one of the most delicious bites of pork on a sandwich, because you bite down and you get that crispiness from the skin and you get that tenderness from the meat at the same point. Yeah. His sauces that he uses, I believe, are a little bit more on the vinegar side. That's what they're known for in the Carolinas. Whereas you get to some other areas, they use a mustard base. And then some other places, as we know, they use more of a ketchup base. And ketchup, of course, has vinegar in it to begin with.
Dang, dude.
But they don't use a lot of the ketchup-based ones on the whole hog like in the Carolinas, because when they're cooking it like that, it's got sugar and stuff in it. It's going to burn.
Correct.
That's why they
Yeah.
do more of the vinegar base, because it's not going to do anything. It's just that vinegar, the acid in the vinegar is going to eat into that meat. It's going to help soften it and tenderize it. But if they've got all that sugar and stuff from a ketchup-based sauce dripping down into their direct fire, you're going to get burning and kind of some bitter flavors out of that as well.
That's correct.
Mhm.
So where we see sugar added is when we're doing our whole hog in what we call racer style. That's more or less our presentation type of hog. Head on, shoulders on. Sometimes to be able to fit the pit, they'll take the last what do I want to call it? How do I, without using medical terms for this? Let's just call it the foot. They just take the foot off the pig. They're not taking the knee. They're not taking the shin off. They're just going from the ankle to the foot. Simple way of putting it. We're not going to call it dorsal pedis. We'll keep this unmedicalized.
Jeez.
All right. So in that case, now you have a hog. Again, same thing. It was field dressed, cleaned out. When we open up our hog, we want to get out some of that other connective tissue that's inside, so that all of our different spices and seasonings are able to penetrate through and into the meat. But the other thing that we do is we're adding 1.5 gallons to 2 gallons of injection into the pig. And that's where devices like that is called the Spitfire. Do I have that right? Spit Jack. That's what it is. The Spit Jack on steroids, because now you've got yourself a 1.5 to 2 gallon container with a large hose that's going into a gun, so that you don't have to keep going back and refilling. You just keep going. And you'll see that as you begin to inject the hog with all this liquid, it begins to swell up. While on the outside, we're not as concerned because we're going to get that nice ruby red color. On the inside, that's where we're going to put our dry rub. What I've seen done and what I've experienced when I'm doing competition barbecue, and it was nice to bring that out, is we actually did, for a binder on the inside, even though we had already injected the hog, we wiped it down so we didn't have any pooling, and then we still used, I believe it was French's yellow mustard as a binder on the inside, and then added on our dry rub. And it didn't have to sit for too long. But it's important to note that once you inject that pig, it's going to start to penetrate through. And you're going to see right on the inside, after you've injected the pig, that it begins underneath the rib cavity. It starts to blow out. In fact, you may even see, as you begin to inject the pig, that its limbs begin to come back to life. And it goes into what looks almost like rigor mortis, where the legs are at the side, and then suddenly they come out at you. And it's a scary, it's a Franken pig.
My turkey
Wow.
did that a couple of weeks ago. I injected my turkey before I brined it, and it was all, it looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, that's what you get. With those type of cooks, when you're doing that, whether you're on a hog cooker or you're doing this, like we're saying here tonight, on your brick pit, it's important to note that you need to do 2 important things. One, get a brick and put some tinfoil around it to prop up its head. And then, because the body now doesn't have all its internal organs, the back, rather than be straight, it begins to sag. So in order to stop the sag, especially when you're cooking it, you want to take a couple of bricks and make sure they're brand new, clean bricks, wrap them in tinfoil, and then stack them up. Go 3, 2, 1, possibly almost like a pyramid, and put the pig right on top of that. That way its spine is nice and even for the cook, because it's going to be in there for quite a while. What I find is when we're looking for that color from the smoke, if we're going indirect versus a direct cook on that pig, it's nice to be able to integrate in some of the cherry woods that give us that richer, darker color. Applewood gives us a great flavor and another great color and flavor. As part of our injection, it just came to me. Apple juice, apple vinegar, 2 great bases to use on top of all the other seasoning and spices that you're going to put in there. So the diameter of our needle, again, going back to the medical
14
eyes, I'm
gauge.
trying not to do that. We're going down to, like, what's that, 16 gauge?
14.
14 gauge. There you go. 14 gauge needle syringe in order to push that through. So to give you an idea, this right here, this is a 20 gauge fill needle that that we use if we're reconstituting stuff. So this is what 20 gauge looks like. This is good for nothing. If I told you to go fill a pig with this, I'll see you in 3 days.
So the gauge number, the bigger the number, the smaller the hole. The hole.
It's just like shot.
Yes. Yeah. So like a diabetic needle is a 3/16, 31, 32 gauge.
Dude, I've been using like a 12 gauge
Oh.
needle.
Yeah, 12
And it's
gauge.
like-
You're going to get a quick fill. What's
Yeah.
nice
I'm
about
like-
that is you're not going to clog it up. So all that seasoning that's in there, that a
Yeah.
lot of the times will get stuck at the end of your needle, whether you have a chisel point or you're dealing with a rounded point. You want to go with a chisel point when you're doing this. You're able to, using your plunger, you're able to push that through. If you're using that spit jack, what's nice about that is you can use the hand pressure and it's able to click its way through. Unlike using that type and some of the other ones where you're grabbing it and pushing with your thumb, you're able to use all of your dexterity in order to squeeze directly into that pig or into whatever the protein is you're cooking.
Yeah, completely.
Same thing, with your ribs, going back. We all know how to do the low and slow, but what's nice about the pit barbecue is we can go hot and fast, and we're getting that excellent color. The fire is giving us that nice brown and black spots here and there that we know that we've got that char on there, and that mahogany color. And because of the flexibility of being able to build, you're able to easily build yourself a commercial sized pit in your backyard and walk 360 around it to get to all areas. Whereas those that are dealing with these 1,000-gallon pits, nothing against them, they're limited to where they can cook and how much space. You have a 1,000-gallon pit, you're stuck at that size. But when we're dealing with these cinder block pits, when we're dealing with blocks, we can go as big or as small as we want, depending upon the size of cook. So if this was a catering job, if I was going out to, say, for example, a country club where they're hiring me to do a wedding for 300 people, the presentation is going to be on these big hogs, and it's going to be on some of the other cooks that I'm doing, whether it's going to be my ribs, my chicken, my briskets. So I can set this thing up a nice long pit, and as long as I have 2 or 3 burn barrels going, me and the other guys we just keep putting the hot coals underneath and working different areas of the pit by just sliding the metal back and forth or being fancy and having it that we can just lift it up and get underneath. And that's what's nice, again, about having smaller pieces of metal or smaller pieces of wood that we can slide around. And all we need is some heavy duty gloves so that we don't cut ourselves, especially if we're dealing with metal.
Do you think though it's a better style brick pit for doing hogs to be direct with embers
I
rather
think
than the offset style?
Yes.
I do too.
Yes. And in fact, and I'm gonna put this out there. One of the home-sized conventional pits that has the freedom and flexibility to be able to do this is the smoke slinger. When you think about that,
Yeah.
a 24 by 48, you can fit for your family at home and your friends coming over a suckling pig, say up to 25, 30 pounds, splay that thing out if you want to, or even put it on there. I put it into our cooking section on Smoker Builder U, where you'll see that there's some pictures I put up and some directions for how to set that pig up. And the smoke slinger gives you that freedom and flexibility because it's on wheels to move it around. And that's what's so wonderful about that. It's a pit on wheels. But for those that aren't up to that stage, they're getting ready and they're still that up to the bricks, which is where I started. Go for it. Find out your cooking style. Find out your cooking modalities. You're doing the same thing. Whether you're pitching the hot coals into the bottom of a brick pit or you're pitching them into the bottom of your smoke slinger, it's the same thing. You're going to get that delicious pit quality food as long as you know how to season your meat to your flavor. And that includes not too much salt. A lot of these different mixes that are out there, they're loaded up with salt. So if you're going to go with a commercial brand rub, don't start adding more salt on. Or if you're going to then use a mop sauce, keep in mind not to put salt into that. You've got enough salt that was in your dry rub when you put that in, that now when you're going back and you're adding your moisture in, and most of us would probably just do an apple juice and apple cider vinegar and then spritz it, which is great. But if you want that extra flavor, you go with the mop sauce.
So Lee's asking about the Cuban pig cookers. I think he's talking about like the cajachinas and stuff.
Cajachina, yes.
Yeah, those are more like little roasters. So you got indirect. I mean, you got all the radiant heat coming down into that box from the top, but you're not really getting airflow on the pig, because the charcoal pan sits on top of that, and you put all your charcoal in there. It's almost like cooking in a Dutch oven, a pig Dutch oven kind of deal. Coals on top, radiant heat going down, reflective surface inside. I've built a couple of those out of iron.
Has anybody ever made skin on chicken thighs and then they come to the conclusion? I think this came up in a discussion about 2 weeks ago, how to crisp up the skin on the outside when we're making our chicken thighs and even a drumsticks with skin on. When we're dealing with that direct heat, that direct fire that's coming up, like in this case with our pit barbecue, it's a lot easier to get that skin crisped up. We're just simply taking those hot coals and now putting them directly underneath, sometimes in a pile or just spread out. And that heat that's coming up, that radiant heat's going to crisp up that skin. Word to the wise, you just want to keep an eye on it, because you can easily go from crispy skin to fried skin in a matter of moments. That fat's dripping down, and the fat is located right there underneath the skin. So when you take that chicken that you've been cooking on which is more or less meat side, and you turn it over to that skin side, those juices that have been building up are underneath that skin, and it's going to start to simply drip down and flare up. And that flare up, that smoke that's coming up, infuses delicious flavors that you can only get from doing this type of style of cooking.
Yeah, for sure on the direct heat chicken skin thing, man. Completely. It's really good. I think the best I've ever had though was down at Al Fragone's place when we did frog chicken, the Argentine style. And I think the big part of that was we made chimichurri, which is oil, like olive oil, and you got the herb blend of the chimichurri, but then also you've got red wine vinegar mixed in with that. And you just rub that under the skin, like open every bit of that skin you can and get it everywhere you can directly on the meat. And then you salt the crap out of the outside of that skin. There's like no rest time. There's no brining. There's no like super crazy like preparation or anything. You just get that thing in that squisher deal, whatever they call that, the cross, and put it directly over the heat. And then you keep your heat. Of course, you check them with your hand, but you keep that really intense heat. In their world, it's not searing, but it's more of a 10 to 12 seconds that you hold your hand there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it fries from the inside out. And I think that vinegar like does something also, but the salt on the outside, I think, just simply dries it out is what it does on the outside of that skin. And the heat coming on that, it literally like it's like something that melts on your tongue is what it is. Like it's so crispy and stuff and so perfect that like when you take a bite of that, it's just like dissolves. It's not even really like, it's not like you're not going to tear it like a tater chip or, crunch through like a tater chip, but it was phenomenal. Unbelievable even. That's like the quest.
Yeah.
I thought it was a myth up until that bite.
And that's the effect. It's that first bite that suddenly something goes off in our brains and we go, how do I do that? How do I do that again? It's like crack. And we're always chasing it. How do we get there? And Al has figured it out. He and I think it's called a clamp grill that he uses, where he sticks the meat in there and it's clamped on both sides.
Yeah.
And what's nice is that's it. He just flips it over. He doesn't have to worry about anything falling apart. It's all clamped right in there.
That
Has
was the best
anybody
bite of
ever-
chicken I ever had.
Oh my goodness. I'm
Yeah.
still looking forward
They
to
make
that.
those, they make those big clamshell cookers out of like old fuel tanks, and then they'll put a chicken flipper in it, which has that clamshell, and you just flip the grate from one side to the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Flip one time though in the Argentine cooking, and it sounds like this block pit thing is a one-time flip as well, like with the pigs and stuff. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I would think that now with the advancements in temperature probes, not that I'm a big fan of using temperature probes, but we're kind of getting to the evolution of wireless temperature probes that are becoming a little bit more reliable, allowing us to go a further distance and having a higher degree of accuracy. So I'm not a fan of punching holes in my meat, or then later on, if I'm serving something, if I'm slicing it up, say for example, I'm doing a prime rib, I don't like to see holes in the meat. It's one thing when I'm making a hole, I'm starring it to stick whole pieces of garlic or garlic slivers into the roast. Because when you slice it up, then obviously you're getting the garlic right there in with the meat. And people enjoy garlic like I do. I want to have that. But I don't like seeing holes going through the meat when I'm slicing it. It's suddenly right there through the eye of the ribeye. There's like a dowel hole that's coming through it. So the manufacturers are now little by little making their probes more narrow, more accurate. One of the newest probes that came out, it has 5 different temperature sensors in it when you go over to what they call their expert or advanced mode. That recently showed up, and I'm going to find out pretty soon how that works. I'm saving that for a big cook.
Is that
So
the
I'm looking forward to
RFX?
It is the RFX.
I think the RFX is probably the narrowest of those wireless thermometers now.
Yeah. Excited for that one.
I am very excited. This is the new 4-probe RFX that came in probably about 2 weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to using this.
Who the hell is that still in the box? What is wrong with you?
I know.
Why is it still in the box?
You ain't doing it right.
I would be opening that standing on my porch after they delivered it.
Under my desk. Oh boy. Under my desk is a collection of things I've never even gotten to yet from ThermoWorks, like the chef alarm, or what do we have here? The Smoke X4. I mean, I've got all these things I haven't even gotten to. So you're wondering why I haven't opened up that yet?
Jeez.
And those are Wi-Fi connected, right?
It's Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: with Bluetooth, you're limited in your distance. Once you go Wi-Fi, you could be on the other side of the country if somebody's cooking at your house, and you know what they're cooking and at what temperature.
Now the 2 newer ones, the ThermoWorks RFX and the Fireboard Pulse, they don't use Bluetooth. They use sub-1 gigahertz technology. So you're not limited by that Bluetooth being blocked if it's inside your smoker, because it's the lower frequency down at 900 megahertz, and I think one of them's at 600 megahertz. It goes through that 1/4-inch steel wall of your smoker, and you're not limited. That was one of the problems with the earlier wireless ones, is the Bluetooth would drop signal way too easily.
Yeah, completely.
Problem with the Wi-Fi ones too.
Well, what they use is they use a repeater. Like they'll do sub-1 gigahertz to get from the wireless thermometer out of your smoker to the repeater. And then the repeater is connected to your home Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. And even the sub-1 gigahertz, I mean, guys are getting 300, 400, 500 feet of distance with some of that even without having to be on Wi-Fi.
I saw a ThermoWorks test where that thing is inside, that probe is submerged inside a crock pot in a roast, or
Yeah.
not a crock pot, inside a cast iron Dutch oven that's in like a chuck roast that's in the stew, and it's inside the solution offset, and it's still reading through the cast iron, through the offset, out
Yep.
to the repeater thing. You could put 50 probes on that deal.
Yeah. And the
It'll
RFX
talk to 50.
The RFX, and I think the combustion, I'm not sure if the combustion, but I'm pretty sure the RFX, you can actually submerge it in deep frying oil. So you can stick it in a turkey and then deep fry your turkey. The whole thing is submerged in oil and it's fine. I haven't been able to get an answer about that on the Fireboard Pulse yet, but I don't think that it's submersible in oil. It's good up to like 600 degrees, but I don't think you can do it in oil. So
That's crazy.
that's one thing I still haven't made the leap yet between the Fireboard Pulse and the RFX, because I would like to be able to deep fry with it, but I'm already invested in the Fireboard ecosystem. I've got 2 Fireboards and I love their software and all that. But I actually bought an RFX like Dave's got, but I didn't buy it for me. I bought it for somebody else and it got shipped to them for Christmas. And so now I'm sitting here going, man, why did I do that and not buy it for myself?
Yeah.
But you can
Oh, man.
you can sear with those. I mean, you can have it right over a super hot open flame. And I'm pretty sure the RFX you can sear, on a charcoal grill with flare-ups and all that, and it doesn't bother it either.
Cool.
I'm a big thermometer
Zane-
guy. I love that. I love the monitoring thing, and the holes in the meat doesn't bother me because I'm not cooking for commercial purposes for anybody else. If somebody doesn't, if they see a piece of meat with a hole in the center of it and they make a face at it, I'm going to tell them go somewhere else. I don't care. It's my house.
So I know Tal came in late, but do you have any questions that maybe we can even review something about the block pits and stuff?
Yeah, this was
Anybody that's in here?
this.
What's that?
I was bummed to be missing this. I thought I was going to be home a lot earlier today to catch this, and it just didn't happen.
It'll be posted.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be reposting it in the engineering section
Okay,
over
cool.
there on Smoker Builder U. Yeah.
Yeah, and Frank, you mentioned you could do up to 50 of those probes with the RFX, and I think with the Fireboard you can do 32 probes.
Wow.
They automatically just show up in the Fireboard software. When you boot it up, it just shows up like another probe, which is really cool. And I love that. I love the Fireboard because you can graph it. You can display all the graphs. You can change the color of the lines for each different probe and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I
For
was
sure.
the Weber iGrill for a little while.
I have one of those. Yeah.
And it's like, it's definitely more intro level. There's only 4 probes. And I love the thing because you get the graph and you can save your cooks, and it's the UI I think was halfway decent. And I ended up switching down to the ThermoWorks dot that I got from whatever weekly or a monthly contest we did a while back. And I gotta say, I think I kind of like having the dot because with the Weber and you're getting the readouts on your phone all the time. I mean, for one, I had to be pretty close to it to actually, because it was not Wi-Fi, it's just Bluetooth, right?
Bluetooth, yeah.
Pretty much just line of sight, and even sometimes less than that. But like I was messing with the smoker the whole time. I was checking the meat, like, when I'm looking at the graph, I get too like anxious. Like I switched down to just having the single probe for, internal temp, and just kind of even using that as a pretty loose guideline. It's nice to have all that information, but I feel like for me, sometimes I overuse that information, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
easy to get really involved in watching your temperatures, and I do that a lot. Like I've got 2 Fireboards, so I can run 12 probes off of those, and sometimes I'm running on 2 or even 3 cookers at one time, and I've got them all labeled for which cooker they're in and all that kind of stuff. And then I've got another another one that's got 4 probes that is on a different app. And so I like the Fireboard because you can do so many all at one time. And I've done that, mapping the temperatures in my smokers after I build them, and I'll have 10 or 12, spots that I'm monitoring the temperatures and stuff. And you can also share that. Like, I can share it live. I can put a link up and somebody can follow my cook from halfway around the world. They just look at it online and
Oh,
they
that-
can see what all my temperatures are running in, live. And I can add pictures in of, I open it up and take a picture of my brisket. Oh, look at my bark, and attach it to that. And it stays on there. And I've got all my cooks. I go back and look at my Fireboard sessions history, and I don't even know how many now. I could go back and count, probably a couple of hundred cooks. And I can always go back. I do that a lot, where I'll go, oh, I remember I made that rib roast on Thanksgiving or on Christmas 2 years ago, and go back and look at what temperature I pulled it off, and I know exactly what I did. But sharing that, and anybody else can look at your graph online and stuff. I think it's awesome.
I like
it is.
post cook, like
Yeah.
able to look back, like you said, and be like, ooh, that one came out really good. What was the difference there?
Exactly. Yeah. And being able to compare, I did exactly the same thing, but I changed one variable. I used a different kind of wood, or I cooked at a different temperature, and see how quickly it went up, or, whatever. And I've even done it with the, like the rib roasts, pull it off the pit and leave the probe in it, and then wrap it up or tent it, put it on the counter, and I can see how much that rose after I pulled it off the pit. I had this rib roast that I pulled off at like 117, and by the time we got to serving, it was at like 131 or 132. So I knew how much it had gone up even after I had pulled it off the pit, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's important information to know, especially if you're trying to like repeat something, or if you're cooking it
Yep.
in not in bulk, but like, doing it over and over again. That's good stuff to be able to have as baseline.
Yeah, I'm a techie guy, so I love all those thermometers. And yeah, the Combustion Ink, which I think it has at least 5, if it may not have 7, but I know the RFX has 5 temperature sensors in it, which that's nice because, I'm always looking at, okay, if I'm putting a probe in, say my wired probes, I'm trying to get it into the middle of my meat. Well, with the Combustion or with the RFX, you just stick it in there. And if the far end of it is farther in and starting to get to the other side, well, it's going to be lower temp, but it'll pick your core temperature and show you, oh, well, that's on temperature sensor number 3.
Kind of cool.
And, the 2, 3 on either side of it are lower. You don't even have to really have it that sensitive to be where the tip is right in the middle of your meat. So that's pretty cool.
Well, what I think is interesting about this, though, is like if you were doing a hog, like we were talking earlier, on a brick pit, and we're wanting our loins to be 1 temp when they're done, shoulders another, the hams another temp. Like, this thing would be phenomenal for that, because
Oh yeah.
I mean, after all, we're trying to like when we're getting long enough into our cook that like the loins and the bacons and stuff like that are getting almost done. We need to pull heat away from that area and put more
That's really
heat on
handy
the
for
other
that.
end
Yeah.
where the hams are,
Yeah.
or up where the shoulders are. That's fascinating to me that we can do that. I know that we're trying to get all caveman and cook on a brick pit and stuff, but
And then use
still,
all
it
the
sure is
technology
nice to
too.
have the information,
I'd like to have that. That'd be really neat if I had, 6 or 8 of those wireless thermometers, put one in each shoulder, one in each ham, and then a couple in, the ribs or whatever. And yeah, you could adjust your heat, pull some of those coals off to the shoulders or the hams, and leave the center alone because it's starting to get a little too warm. But the problem is, that's expensive. You're talking, well, Dave's got the four probe model, which is about $350. But yeah, being able to do a bunch of different probes and see what your meat's cooking at different places on the hog would be really neat.
But I don't think you can use those probes on air temp, can you, Dave, on the RFX?
There's a wired probe for the air tap. So
Yeah.
that's your grate tap. So that's still, I have to run a wire through and it clips onto the grate, and the wire comes out, goes into the repeater. The other 4 probes that are included are all wireless. Those aren't taking the ambient temp. They're only taking the temperature of the meat.
So the RFX
Yeah.
is a little bit different in that respect because all of the other wired probes, whether you're talking about combustion or Fireboard or ThermoPro or Typher, they all have an ambient sensor outside the meat, and they're giving you an ambient temperature, but it's not really that great because there's a lot of factors. You know, your meat is acting as a heat sink, and it's pulling some of that heat in. And so those ambient sensors are not necessarily all that accurate. And your meat also, big chunks of meat have got kind of a cooler air bubble or a cooler zone around them. So that little, ambient probe sensor is an inch outside your meat, but that's not necessarily the same temperature as the rest of your cooker. So if you're trying to rely on that, you may be running the rest of your cooker too hot. And
Yeah.
it's just you're trying to say, oh, well, that should be at 275, which is my cook temp, but that's not really where you want it. You want your outside temperature to be 275, but you may be at 225 down by the meat. And so the RFX, they just gave up that whole battle and they said there's no way to get a good, accurate ambient temperature anywhere really close to the meat. So they just left that ambient, sensor off of it and said, you're going to have to use a wired sensor for your ambient temps. And, it's just a different thought process that they use. Some of them, I think some of them they've tried to use computer algorithms and that kind of stuff to predict what your ambient temperature is based on what it's actually reading and that kind of stuff. But none of it's been really, really great. And I've used, as far as true wireless probes, I've used the ThermoPro temp spikes, and I've got several of those because they were fairly inexpensive. And I noticed that too. They were the ambient temperature was way, way off. I would have a wired probe, within a couple of inches of it, and they'd be off, especially early in the cook. They would be off 100 degrees from the ambient temperature versus what I was measuring at the grate level. And then as the cook progressed and your meat rose in temperature, that ambient temperature the ambient sensor would get closer to the grate sensor. But you just have to, I basically just wrote off the ambient temperature. I didn't use that at all. And but it's really handy. I love all of the temperature monitoring. I have, all these probes, but I really want to get a bunch of the wireless probes. And the other thing I like about the Fireboard one is when you put it back into its little base that it charges from, you can stack those bases on each other like Lego blocks, and they all charge. You can charge a dozen of them.
With one
same
wire?
time. Yes. You can plug
Wow.
into one and then just stack the other ones on top of it, and they all charge. That's been one of my problems with the the ThermoPro temp spike, is that each one of them has its own little charging cradle, but they all have to be plugged in individually, and it's just a pain in the ass. I don't know how the RFX, I think, has one block that they all sit in,
Right.
doesn't it? Kind of like the meter. But
I'll find out once I open it up.
yeah, right.
I've-
I'm going to
I've
drive
used
up there
the-
and open it and play with it.
So I've used the meter
Yeah.
one, and I've used another one from a company called Tapacue.
Yeah.
Both of them were garbage.
Yeah. The meter, I hate
For
the
reasons.
meter's software is terrible. And they had a lot of problems
Yeah.
with dropping signal. But again, they were using Bluetooth, and so
Yeah.
does the temp spike. They use Bluetooth, but now
So does Tapacue.
Fireboard and ThermoWorks have gone to this sub 1 gigahertz technology and apparently have really come out good with not dropping signal, while you're sitting in a big old thick steel cooker.
So Dave, I got a question for you about pigs though.
Sure.
So the question, I don't really know what to ask, but I was going to ask, like, does a smaller pig cook completely different than a larger pig on a pit like this? Or is it the same process for both?
No, the process is going to be a lot quicker, and the smaller pig is going to be way more tender. In fact, what I would suggest in order to get more meat on that pig, just we can't change the size of the pig, but I can change the weight. How does that sound? I can take a smaller pig, but make it way more than it did when I got it. I'm going to
How's
tell you
that?
exactly how this is done. Here we
By
go.
stuffing him full of pork butts.
You better believe it. So what we
Oh,
do is
nice.
we cube up. I debone the pig. He knows this. I debone
Oh my
the
God.
pig.
Now that sounds like a process.
I marinate the pork butt chunks, and then I take those, stuff them back inside the pig, and I sew the pig up.
Sew it up.
Yep. So the reason for this is now it would be nice to have a temperature probe be able to do this, because no longer am I worried about the shoulders and the hams, because that whole cavity is now loaded with meat. Now I can see where this is going to come into play, because you just put the idea in my head what to do with that pig. I'm probably going to make in about 2 weeks from now. A suck.
Yeah, just stick your wireless probe right in the chest cavity and
Correct.
inside it.
Yeah.
Right in between, between the stitching.
Yeah.
That way, I'm not poking a hole in it, because I want the presentation. So that pig now is going to cook for a while with the nice heat in there. And when it's done, we did this in the catering business a lot. This is where the fun comes into play. On the show side, people are seeing the pig kind of laying on its side when I'm doing this, and all they see is we keep reaching into the stomach and pulling out meat. It's like the meat never ends. So what I would do is, when I go back, just cut all my sutures, open up the pig, and start pulling the meat out. Then start working my way down the leg and the shoulder, pulling that meat out. That's ready too. And when you take that bite, when you take and everything starts to taste like ham, smoke it long enough. When you start pulling that ham meat out, and you combine it with your rib and bacon meat and a little bit of the back strap, what a flavorful bite. And now that you've got that pork butt in there that we know is going to make it's our pulled pork anyway, it's in the rest of the cavity of the pig is getting the juices and the flavors that are now spreading and mixing. So when it comes time for service, everyone sees this beautiful colored pig, rosy nose. We stick a cigar in his mouth, some sunglasses, a lay around his neck, and the meat just comes out. Thank you, Frank, for that.
And you don't even have to poke that thermometer in there. You can stick that whole thermometer in your chest cavity inside the pork butt, and then just sew it all up inside, because it's going to transmit through from inside.
So
that's neat.
Coming. And for you, Tal, the idea that just came to me come the summertime is doing if you were to do a small pit outside, doing Oysters Rockefeller right there.
Cool.
Right?
Cool. I'm all about
that's a show. I know, and you probably have the crowd where you do that.
So like butter ladle for doing that. There's a word for it. It's like a cat butter ladle. Things are crazy.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. You guys, when you live on the East Coast and you have all these availability to fresh seafood, shellfish,
and Blue Point, man, you can't beat them.
It's heaven. I'm doing for the holidays. We're running over to Restaurant Depot. I'm picking up 50 Komodo oysters and 50 of something else. I forgot what it is. The Komodo come from California, I believe. Yeah. And then something else that's coming from the Chesapeake. So I'm doing 100 oysters here.
Oh.
And this Friday coming up on the 20th, I've got 10 pounds of not colossal. I've not large. It's between large and colossal. I don't know what the size is of stone crab claw coming in.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's
never too late to get in the car and drive 25 minutes, is it?
Really? Yeah. Dave, you ever go to Asbury Oyster Bar?
No, but I have a feeling that we'll be making a side trip.
Oh yeah, that's like it's right on the boardwalk in Asbury Park by the that music hall or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, right in there. Oh my God, dude, best oysters I think in Asbury Park for sure. And they got all of it. They got everything you can get on the Jersey Shore, and then they usually have like 2 or 3 imports too.
I can't eat snotty things.
Yeah, I'm not an oyster guy. Not
What about baked clams? You guys into that?
Snotty sounding.
It's
clams.
not
Clams
cooked.
I can eat, but I just don't like. I don't like the flavor of oysters. Even getting away from the texture, I just don't like the flavor. I tried to make oyster dressing a couple of years ago. I totally ruined Thanksgiving. It was everybody.
We're all. Me and Danny are pretty far away from oceans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I love crab and shrimp and all that stuff, but oysters not my thing. And clams. Now I can do mussels. Mussels, if
Okay.
they're cooked. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not an oyster guy. Clams are. Oh, I can take them or leave them. I'm not that interested in them, but you know,
Clam chowder.
So,
just red meat.
Clam chowder. What about so mussels? Do you like mussels in a red sauce? Or do you like mussels in a white sauce, like your
White
garlic
sauce,
and butter? Yeah.
Either way, but most of the times I've had them, it's been in a white sauce. There was a place.
Garlic, butter, shallots, a little bacon or pancetta in
Oh,
that.
yeah. Man, when I was down in St. Martin, we used to go to this place down on the water, and we'd get they made a steak sandwich that was made with strips of marinated steak, and then we'd get their mussels appetizer, and it was just they were in a white sauce, and oh, they were great. Mussels, they don't have that same flavor that oysters do, and I don't like the oyster flavor, so that's fine.
aren't they snotty too?
Not when you boil them and you cook them, they're a little rubbery kind of, but
It's
they're not snotty.
Do you gotta slurp it or can you like chew it?
Yeah.
only
Are
oyster.
you talking about raw oysters and clams or cooked?
I don't know. If you gotta slurp it, I'm kind of out.
No, that's
But
the
if
raw
you
one.
can like chew it, maybe.
If you cook them, they come out kind of a little rubbery, a little chewy,
Yeah.
kind of like snails. Have you ever had snails?
Oh, yeah, I
No.
love
Yeah,
that.
they sound snotty too.
And not
They
if
leave
they're
us.
cooked.
They leave a snot trail. It's
Yeah,
just
right.
like
Oh,
slugs.
man.
They're a little, but
They
good. But
are. They're slugs.
No, I don't like. I've eaten the raw oysters, and I had to. I had to eat one on a bet one time, and okay, so I ate it, but I ate one. That was it.
Old
Hmm.
boy Stuart took me to eat sushi the other day. It's the first time in my life. I've always been opposed to that one too.
I like
And
depending on
well,
what it is.
man, the tuna,
Yeah,
that was
tuna's good.
legit.
Tuna's good. I'm not
I
a
was
big
in
fan
on
of
that.
salmon, but most of the sushi that I eat has lobster or crab in it or shrimp in it. I just don't like fish in general.
Yeah,
Eel.
shrimp don't bug me. Crawdads, I'm all about it. Let's
Oh, yeah.
go. But I don't know. I just something about oysters. I just can't. You gotta slurp them out of the shell. Not
But
into
when you
that.
make them Rockefeller, you're putting in there your Rockford blue cheese, spinach, other things.
stuff to make the oyster not
butter.
taste.
Not taste like oyster.
No, but you're cooking the oyster in its shell, so
But
it's
it's
getting
kind of
its own natural
Sort
juices.
of boiling
along with-
in its own shell, right?
yeah, yeah.
Throw
Yeah,
away
I
the
grill.
fish and eat the board
Yeah.
kind of deal.
I feel like
And John, if
it gets back into
hey,
on the call.
Yeah,
What's
this is
that?
my favorite part. I love when we go down the food trip.
Yeah. No, Frank, I'll stick with the Frank and Lola's green chili verde, the pork chili.
that was
verde.
legit, dude. That was really good.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I do have
but
a
if
question for you guys.
yeah,
So I've been doing a lot of practice briskets, right? And so now I got all this leftover brisket, believe it or not. And I'm making a chili that I do just like chuck in or something like that.
Yeah.
I had prime rib left over. I put the prime rib in that. But this brisket's smoked, it's cooked already. So I got the chili going in the crock pot. Here, I'll show you guys. Do we think add the brisket in at the end? I didn't put it in yet because I was worried that like it was gonna get kind of weird cooking further.
yeah,
If you
it'll
put it in
turn
too
to
early,
Slurpee.
It'll kind of fall apart too much, and it just
Yeah.
ends up like shredded beef in there.
It'll get too mushy.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna keep it out for right now.
Yeah, put it
Yeah.
in. Yeah, if it's in the crock
Put
pot,
the
put it in for the last hour or something.
Yeah.
put all the fatty tallow juiciness in there.
I
Oh,
threw
yeah.
Put all
that in there. This is a very rich chili. It's got pancetta, pork belly.
Nice. Oh yeah.
It's usually has beef. It's gonna have brisket. It's got a can of beer, some beans. I cheat, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. What I do with the other can? I put a can of this stuff in there.
What
It's
is that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, hot dog
it's
chili
really
sauce.
Cheating.
this stuff. It's amazing.
It's-
Put this in a chili, and that'll thicken that right up. It's nice,
Yeah, it's cheating. That's good.
but I'm okay with it.
It's
That's
a
What
totally
starch
okay.
are you using to
Put
thicken it up?
whatever in it. Anything.
It's like because you end up mashing half the beans to like get it to like thicken anyway. That's
Okay.
there.
So
You use
I've
kidney beans from the can, or did you take the bag of dried beans and then reconstitute them? You rehydrated them.
No, I got the 68 cents can of Goyas.
Okay, the
Yeah.
Goya beans.
I
so
put
all
ranch
the
style beans in mine.
all you could tell you guys is all Yankees up there talking
Yeah.
about beans,
Those
right?
Texans, they lose their mind. Their head spins around backwards. I like beans in my chili. Hell, I've even put corn in my chili.
I need the
I
fiber.
do it. I do it both ways, with and without beans. I'm in the middle. I haven't chose a side yet. Missouri never really did choose a side. We had both kinds in that deal.
You just can't put pasta in there. Pasta doesn't belong in chili.
No, that's weird.
I've seen people put elbow pasta in, and it doesn't work.
It just
But
becomes
Tal, what
goulash.
are you using as a starch to thicken that up? Did you just start that cook?
No,
And
that's
that's why-
it's like noon or so. But I use so this is a recipe that I usually do in the Dutch oven. And
Uh-huh.
when I'm searing my meat, I throw a little bit of flour in there. But I didn't do it. I was super lazy. This was a rush job. So I just threw a tablespoon of flour in when I stirred in all my sauteed veggies and stuff. And then I just I poured everything in and closed the lid and walked away from it. I didn't even brown the meat. I cheated. This is a real
Awesome. Chili Mac. See, Patrick's from Kansas. He understands what's up on Chili Mac.
Chili Mac
You
is
guys is all dog and elbow macaroni, man. I'm all over that. Come on.
Yeah, you just don't put it in chili. Then it becomes chili mac or becomes goulash. Yeah.
Ooh, goulash.
I was gonna say
Goulash is good.
goulash.
We used to have a pizza place in Hackettstown called Poor Boys Pizza, and they would do a pie that was hot dogs and sauerkraut, and it was the best piece of pizza I've ever had in my life. I swear to God, it was amazing.
Pizza. It was hot dogs and sauerkraut on a pizza.
Yep, and it was like
Dang.
I don't remember if there was no sauce or if it was a white sauce, but oh my God, it was so good. And it was, it wasn't like big pieces of hot dog. It was like your regular sized hot dog chopped in like maybe half-inch chunks.
Right.
You like horseradish, right?
Horseradish?
yeah.
Horseradish. Yeah. Cal, do you like horseradish?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because you was just talking about the white sauce there, and it's come up a couple times. Like the Alabama white sauce with the horseradish
Oh
and
no,
stuff.
Mayonnaise. Yeah.
no. I mean, so I've had that and I like that, but no, like we in Jersey, like in like a real Italian place, you can get like a white pie that's like creamy with garlic, and it's
Kind of
almost
an Alfredo.
it's almost like an Alfredo, but it's like it's a little thinner. I don't know. It's like cheesy. I mean, I guess an Alfredo is pretty cheesy, but I did.
Talking about weird pies, I was in was it 2018? I think we went to Italy, and we went to Venice, and we took a day trip out to Verona to go see the Verona glass blowing and stuff. And I think it was on a Sunday, and everything was closed. It was one restaurant open on the whole island, and of course it was busy. And we sat down. We finally got a spot, and we were just dying. We were hungry, and we couldn't read the menu, and we didn't know what everything was. And we finally saw on the menu they had American pizza, and we're like, okay, they had several different types of pizza. Well, if you try to order pepperoni pizza in Italy, you're not getting pepperoni, you're going to get salami. It's not, they don't have pepperoni there. But they called it American pizza. When they brought it out, it was pizza crusts with pizza sauce and hot dogs and French fries on it.
That's
It was the weirdest thing. Not great. Not great.
But you did try one. They did get your money with that.
Yeah, they did. They it was one of those captive audience things. There wasn't many other options.
I mean,
Hilarious.
try the American pizza when you're in Verona.
Yeah, right. It's funny when you're in Italy, we talk about when you go to the store and you get tomatoes. We've got the big like beefsteak tomatoes and that kind of thing. You get Roma tomatoes, right? Which are those kind of smaller oblong looking ones. You go over to Italy, those little smaller oblong tomatoes, they call them American tomatoes. I'm like,
Do they really?
yeah. That's the weirdest thing. And my son he was trying to order lemonade. We were in Rome. And he was trying to convey to the waitress that he wanted lemonade because he doesn't drink anything that's carbonated, or he didn't at that time. Never had soda, nothing like that. And so they brought him a glass of lemon juice, just straight up fresh squeezed lemon juice. And so he was like, oh, and he took one drink and was like, oh my God. So then we're pouring sugar and stuff into it, trying to sweeten it up. It was rough. It was rough.
Wow.
Interesting stuff
That's
when you go to
intense.
different countries, man. It doesn't all translate the same way.
Yeah. Goodness. That's crazy.
Unbelievable. When you were in Italy, did you find that as you're walking down the streets that it was, some of the best, let's just say meats and cheeses were from the local purveyors, like the little stores? And when, I don't know if you drink wine, or if you like drinks. Okay. So the homemade wine that everybody makes their own homemade wine is better than any bottled wine you can get.
Absolutely. Yeah. We lived in Ireland. My son was born over in Ireland. We lived there, and we went to dinner one night at Waterford Castle. I think it was for our anniversary. And I'm not a big wine drinker. I'll drink it if it's a good wine, or I'll have a glass. We ended up buying 2 or 3 bottles of wine that night at Waterford Castle, and they were like 90 euros a piece. It was incredible wine. It was really good. Then we went to Italy. This was the first time we went when my son was this big, and we were in Venice, and just sitting down at a little trattoria there on the canal, and we just ordered a carafe of their house wine, which, like you said, everybody has their own. And they brought out this carafe of house wine for like 15 euros. And it was miles better than that stuff we paid 90 euros a bottle for in Ireland. Every place in Italy, the wine was absolutely incredible. And I'm not a big wine drinker, but I drank a lot of it while I was there because it was all so good.
Wow.
Did you make it to Tuscany? Did you get up into?
No, we did. We've only been to Rome and Venice a couple of times, and Tuscany. Okay. And Verona and all that stuff, or Florence and that kind of stuff. It's on our list. One of these days we'll make it back over there. But we were limited to only a few days. We had like 4 nights in Rome, and then 2 nights in Venice, and then back to Rome again and came home. But it was an incredible experience, man. We've been all over Europe. We've traveled all over, and every place there has their own special thing, and it's all incredible. Even Paris, I wasn't really impressed with the idea of going to Paris, but it was cool when we were there. But Italy still is probably my favorite of every place. I don't know. Germany's pretty awesome too. The sausages in Munich.
Oh yeah.
Munich, and we did travel a lot in Austria, and man, Austria and Germany are pretty much interchangeable as far as the food stuff goes. But yeah, it was awesome. Everything was cool.
I've been to Frankfurt. I've been to Munich.
Yeah.
Great times, amazing food. I definitely have to say that I was a glutton when I've been out there, especially with the
totally the sausage and the
schnitzel,
the pork shanks. Oh my God.
Pork shanks, Schweinshanks.
Yeah, Schweinshanks. Yeah, gosh. And the beer, of course.
And it's cheap. The beer is cheap.
Yeah.
You get on the train, and it's okay to drink.
Big white sausages for breakfast, and they were like, it was very different. You can't find
Weisswurst.
Yeah, breakfast is very strange in Germany for us, but it was good. I liked it. I definitely
They don't have no biscuits and gravy.
No, no, nothing like that.
I liked my breakfasts in Amsterdam. You know, you go and you get a nice coffee.
Oh
They-
yeah,
They have those funny cigarettes at the coffee place, and you get
the coffee shop. Yeah. Now,
I've never been there.
is the red light on when you go to get that coffee?
oh, they're all like that. All of the coffee shops there. Every
Have all the old red lights going
the red lights are only for the ladies of the night.
In that district.
Yeah,
in that district of town.
yeah.
Anybody been to Spain? Any
Yeah.
of you?
We went
Yeah.
to Spain on that trip we did 2 years ago. We did 2 weeks in Italy or 2 weeks in Europe, and we did London, Paris, Munich, Zurich, and Barcelona.
Mhm.
Oh man,
One of those big,
Barcelona was awesome. So good. The food and just everything. It was awesome.
Have there's the number one steakhouse in the world is in Spain. It's called Bogota El Capricho, and this is on my bucket list of places to go to one day. I heard that the reservations to get in can take 6 to 8 months to get in.
Is that over by in Madrid or?
No, I gotta look at where
We were
this.
in Barcelona. Barcelona's the Catalan area of Spain. I didn't realize this. They don't speak Spanish there. They speak, which is
Speak
somewhat
what?
Catalan.
with the yeah. There's
C-A-L-A-N.
you put your tongue against your teeth whenever you
Yeah.
say words.
So if you speak Spanish, you can kind of get by a little bit, but it's not the same as Catalan. And they're very they're very pointed about the fact that they're not necessarily Spanish, they're Catalan. That's
Mhm.
it's like going to the South in the US. It's like the difference between Yankees and Southerners, that's how they are in Barcelona versus Madrid or something like that. So
Did Oklahoma ever choose sides?
I don't know. It wasn't a state at the time. It was still Indian Territory.
Are you a Yankee or a Southerner?
No,
Danny?
Oklahoma's in general, even though we're probably just Southern Midwest, Oklahomans in general think of themselves as Southerners.
As Southerners? Oh,
Yeah.
no.
stretch.
Huh.
When
Yeah.
you get to Tuscany, when this happens, the name of the place to go to is Dario. I think it's pronounced Cecchini or Cecchini. It's a butcher shop on one level. But then if you're invited, which I'm sure you'll figure out how to get invited to, upstairs,
Right.
it's an all you can eat meat, like
Oh,
they just don't stop.
the meat fest.
Yeah. And all the meats that are downstairs in the butcher shop, all the aged meats and this and that, the guy comes out with the mustache and the whole bit and the apron, and he's upstairs and then he cooks for you. You have to get
Dang.
invited to come upstairs.
Sounds like heaven. Yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
we need to do that. Yeah. We love to travel. We've been a lot of places, but there's still so many more to go to. So one of these days.
Hey, so you guys is getting all snooty about food and stuff. Let me tell you about the beer I just drank
Oh, good.
right here. Okay. I got to turn my blur off. You're going to see
Yeah, it
my
was blurring.
unfinished
I was like-
basement because how do I turn it here? Okay, bam. Here you go. You can see the beer now.
Chili
It's called
rabbit.
Chili Rabbit. Look at that guy. He looks
Okay.
pretty cold.
Where's that from?
Okay, it's from Lakefront Brewing. And my buddy Jason LaFond gave it to me at the Royal. So it's a cold India Pale Ale. Okay.
Mhm.
The only reason I'm bringing it up because this was one of the weirdest beers I've ever drank. The only one weirder than this was the cotton candy beer I had. No, I had a weirder one yet than that was the mayo beer I had.
Oh.
So
Now-
this one, this is the flavor description. You ready? Enjoy tangerine, mango, and strawberry. Keep in mind this is an India Pale Ale, right? It's like 60 on the IBUs or something. Enjoy tangerine, mango, and strawberry flavors from Cashmere and Idaho 7 hops. It has a
Where's the IBUs? I can't read it. This is my fourth beer.
You need longer arms.
So I can't tell what the IBUs are on this thing because I can't see it. It's about 7%. But the weirdest thing is it tastes nothing like good because all them fruits or
Yeah.
berries or whatever's mixed in with the weird two hops that I never heard of. It's too much. But it has a cool rabbit on the label. So we have to drink it.
Well, Kashmir is a province in Pakistan, I believe. So I don't know where they get Pakistani and Idaho hops come into play, but
Well, the awesome thing is look at the bunny. He's got the ears, the earmuffs,
he's got muffs on.
and he's got fangs and ice from his fangs. It's from Lakefront Brewery. It was a fun drink. It tasted bad, but it was still
I'm
fun.
not a big fan of IPAs in general, but not that I dislike bitter, because I mean I love German beers and double box and all that, but I just don't like IPAs all that much.
But the next one, we got one in the chamber here, talking about all these flavors. This one is Hazy Rabbit. It's same guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's just funny
Hazy
cigarettes again.
Hazy Rabbit does not have ice hanging from his teeth. It is a
Sour
come
ale?
on. It says Mosaic. I can't even hardly read this thing.
Yeah, Hefeweizen because it's hazy.
El Dorado. So Mosaic, El Dorado, Azaka, whatever that is, and Cashmere hops. That's 4 kinds of hops.
Do you have to
Deliver papaya, grapefruit, and pineapple. So it's going to have a papaya, grapefruit, and pineapple flavor on top of all them hops it's talking about.
I don't know. That's just a little odd.
We have to drink it because it's got a rabbit on there.
I'm going to grab my first beer. You're on number 4.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
parched.
number
I don't
4.
I
I'm
don't
starting
stop
number
talking.
2.
I need the beverage.
5, actually. This is number 5. I'm wrong.
That's why you
Today.
can't read it.
I'm on
No, it's
number
I'm
4.
colorblind.
White Claw.
It's silver on yellow.
Drink it because it's cheap.
I was gonna say I thought White Claw was like for fraternity girl or for sorority girls or something.
Yeah,
Hey, did
Jersey is kind of like just not graduating college. You're just kind of still there.
Okay.
It's cheap and it's 8%, so it works.
There's a place down in outside of Muskogee, Oklahoma. If you're an Okie from Muskogee, there's a place called Krebs, and Krebs is a little bitty town where they used to have an Italian concentration camp back in World War II. And so when they released all of those Italian prisoners, a lot of them settled there, and Krebs has become sort of the Italian food capital of Oklahoma. And there's a place there that's been there for 80 years called Pete's Place. And that's sort of the best Italian food in Oklahoma. And they make a beer. They make chalk. They call it chalk beer, CHOC. And it's a hazy beer, kind of like the Hefeweizen. But they make a peach chalk beer, which I decided to try one time while I was there, and I thought, well, what the hell? And I was a little skeptical that peach in beer was going to be weird, but it actually was extremely, extremely good. It was refreshing, and just this tiniest little hint of peach and sweetness in it was really, really good.
Okay.
So I
That's
haven't
awesome.
been down there in several years. I need to.
it's in Muskogee?
It's outside of Muskogee and Krebs. Yeah.
Okay. Bucket
Yeah.
list because I go through there all the time.
Oh my gosh. If you go to Pete's Place, if you go to Krebs, you got to go. There's Pete's Place and there's Isle of Capri and there's Rosanna's. Those are the 3 big Italian restaurants there. Pete's Place is the biggest one, and they've got all the pictures on the wall of all the celebrities that have been there and all that stuff over the last 80 years. But Pete's Place, if you decide to go there, text me and I'll remind you. The thing you got to get
Hell, I'm coming to pick you up, dog.
is their veal parmesan, and it's
You're my
not on the
tour
menu.
guide.
You have to ask for it. The veal parmesan is not on the menu, but it's the best veal parmesan I've ever had outside of the only other one I had that was that good was in Austria. Even in Italy, the stuff at Pete's place was better. Unbelievable.
So Muskogee,
Yeah.
that's where they don't smoke marijuana.
something like that. Yeah. Well, that's what they
Yeah,
say.
that's
They
what the
just grow
song
it.
said.
They just grow it.
You don't let the hair grow long like them hippies.
Yeah. This is
I know,
Oklahoma
right?
now.
That's what it
It's
said,
everywhere.
isn't it?
I think Oklahoma.
Every other building.
We legalized weed about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think Oklahoma now has more marijuana
shops.
dispensaries than any other state in the union, even more than these, California and Colorado that have had it for years and years. And like every third billboard on the highways is about marijuana, and it's embarrassing as hell. But that's what
It's crazy.
it's like nobody around here can get by without smoking weed. I don't understand it. I'm one of, I think, 6 people in Oklahoma that don't smoke weed.
Well, what I'll do, Danny, because you're there, I'll have to swing by and pick you up, and then you'll have to ask Pete for the veal parmesan for me, because
And
he
it's
probably
all-
wouldn't give it to me.
Yeah. Well, it's not like it's it's just they used to have it on the menu. Then they redid their menus and it's not there. And when I went the last couple times, I was like, "Do you still have the veal parmesan?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we do it. Just not, you just have to ask for it." So, and everything is served family style. So they bring out big old big bowls of spaghetti and salad.
Pete's place.
Awesome.
You said Pete's place?
Pete's place in Krebs, Oklahoma, Krebs.
Yeah, I go through there.
Yeah, I mean Muskogee's right down on the way to Dallas.
Oklahoma's a beautiful state.
It is, especially southeast Oklahoma. Yeah, really, really. And of course, that Muskogee is not far. Or no,
You
I
can't
keep
see
saying
this.
Muskogee. It's not Muskogee. It's McAllister, not Muskogee. I'm sorry. Outside of McAllister.
Dude, you can't see this place from the highway. From 69, this place don't show up on 69.
I drove in for the first time in my life back in August, and I was in awe with how beautiful that state is.
Oh yeah.
It's my sister had an internship in Utah that was over, and she drove out there at the beginning of the summer, and I flew out and drove with her on the way back, and we made like a whole road trip out of it. We had so much fun. We did 3 national parks. We did Yellowstone, Grand Teton, and oh my God, like Badlands out in like South Dakota.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh my God, it's like you're walking around on Mars.
That's on our bucket list too. Yeah, we keep saying we need to go up there to the Badlands and go to Rushmore and all that, but
Honestly, we drove right past Rushmore. I mean, like, it's cool. Like, if it wasn't as much of a diversion from my route,
yeah.
I would have stopped and got a picture. You know what I mean? But there's not as much to do there. You know, there's like 2 trails, I think, or 3 trails that take you to a good viewpoint, and that's kind of it.
But all the areas around it, yeah, are supposed to be super nice.
That's true. Yeah. Badlands, though, that wasn't high on my list of like national parks I wanted to hit, but I think that's it might be my favorite national park now. I'm not gonna lie. And it's not like the area in which you can explore is not like super big. You could do it. I think 2 days is more than enough time. 3 if you're really taking your time. And oh my God, it was beautiful. Like we went, it was like middle of August, and there was some meteor shower. I forget which one of those ones that comes around every year.
Perseids or something.
Something like that. Yeah. It was like the weekend that we were there. And we
A good place to see it. Yeah.
it was amazing. But it was clear weather the whole weekend except for the night that we were there. We were only doing one night in that park.
Oh no.
And the guy, there's like an astrology show by like the camp director in like this like outdoor amphitheater. And like it was dark, we were kind of done walking, like exploring for the day. So we go and we check out the astronomy show,
And it's like kind of cloudy, but you can like sort of kind of see stuff. And the guy starts off the show and he's like, yeah, I've been a ranger at this park for 25 years or whatever he was. And last night we had the best viewing experience and the best show of the aurora borealis I've ever seen in my 25 years here. And and he's like, and tonight it's pretty cloudy, so we're probably not going to see anything. And I was like, dude, you could have just kept that to yourself, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Had to rub salt in the wound.
yeah, really. But Badlands, do not sleep on Badlands. That's my favorite thing I've done. Like, we slept, I didn't even put the rainfly on the tent. We just slept like looking at the few stars we could see like the whole night. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
It's like something out of like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. It's wild.
Frank, are you still
Dude.
looking at Pete's place?
I'm looking at that Italian place, dude. That place is no joke.
Oh, it's a giant. It's an old home. It's an old family home that they've added on to over the years, and each of the rooms is like they'll take you into what used to be an old bedroom, and it's there's one table with about 8 chairs, and then they slide the door closed, and you've got your own little private room. They've got about 12 or 15 of those, and then some bigger rooms. It's just cool.
20 to $30 a person, it says.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
How's that so low, especially these days?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is Oklahoma. Yeah. No, it's fabulous Italian food. It really is. It's awesome. And there's several other places there. Isle of Capri has probably the best Chateaubriand I've ever had. And then Rosanna's is a little kind of hole in the wall, but they've been there forever too. And it's really good. Then there's Lovera's Italian grocery with all the homemade cheeses and stuff. Oh, it's amazing.
Took care of that.
So, but yeah, I had no idea that place is there. I take 69 when I go through, and you got to go.
You have to go a little bit east of McAllister. It's about 5 miles.
Yeah.
It's not far. It's not far, but it is so good. And if you go down and stay in that area, of course, there's 20 miles away is Robbers Cave State Park by Wilburton, which is absolutely, I think, one of the most beautiful places in Oklahoma. Really, really nice.
That's cool. Yeah, because when I'm running through there, I'm looking at antiques is what I'm looking for. All the
There's a
junk
lot of
shops.
antique stuff
Yeah.
down there. Yeah.
Running down that road, it is like nothing but junk shops, and I want to stop at every one of them, but I know I shouldn't
Yeah, I think
because I'll
those
get in trouble when I get
Pickers
home.
You guys,
American Pickers go there a bunch.
you ever been to Wall Drug?
I haven't, no, but I've seen all the signs up in South Dakota. Yeah, it's awesome.
I couldn't help it. We had to pull over. It's kind of a spectacle, man. The whole town is like, it's, I don't know, square mile maybe. And like, it's the whole town is centered around Wall Drug. Like, I don't think there would be a town there if it wasn't for that place. They really, they paid the money for their advertising along that road there, but they
Yeah,
back.
it's cool. By the way, the Hazy Rabbit is by far better than the other one, whatever it was called. Chili Rabbit.
Chili Rabbit.
Yeah, Chili Rabbit is a no-go. I've got 2 more to drink in the box.
You gonna drink them all tonight?
No, we will have to drink those on another Friday night.
Got to do it after you've had 5 or 6 other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have been banished
Was,
to the basement.
What was that stuff Marcus brought for us? Spotted cow?
Spotted cow, dog. That's from Wisconsin.
That's good stuff. Yeah, Marcus is going to be down here. I think it's right after the first of the year, down by Shawnee. He's doing a competition down there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, spotted cow. Everybody in Wisconsin is like, what are you drinking that for? But everybody outside of Wisconsin that can't get it is like, Smokey and the Bandit on it.
Yeah, I like it.
Because
I thought it was
it's just like a good old lager, but
it's not like
it's got
anything
cows on it.
special or unique, but it was pretty good beer.
Yeah.
Everybody up here is always going crazy for Heady Topper.
Heady
never heard of that.
Topper.
I don't.
Who makes that one?
Uh,
Eddie Topper. I don't know that I've heard of it.
I haven't heard of that one either.
I forget if the Alchemist, if that's another beer of theirs or if that's the brand. I don't drink beer because I can't have the wheat. I'm allergic. But the store that I worked at had a liquor store attached to it, and like every time they would get that one in, that was like,
Alchemist.
yeah, Alchemist. They that was the very but he was texting me asking, you guys get it?
So you can't drink weeded bourbons?
What's that?
Can't drink any weeded bourbons?
So like
I think
distilled.
Maker's Mark is a weeded bourbon.
So Maker's Mark, the last time I drank it, I got really sick
Well, that would be a no then.
because I finished the bottle, but that also could have been because there was
Might
wheat.
have been part of it, yeah.
Finish the bottle.
Well, so that was actually that's a funny story. So in the early days of me being diagnosed with the wheat allergy, I was still kind of figuring it out, right? And I knew I can't do beer. That was definitely off the list. But I wasn't really, I got diagnosed at like 19. I didn't really, or maybe it was 20. Now I'm 19. So I wasn't really, I didn't drink before I got diagnosed. So I was kind of dabbling, right? And after I turned 21, a friend of mine invited me over to his house, and they were all drinking beer. It was like a high school friend get together. They were all drinking beer, and I didn't really have anything to drink. So he was like, "Oh, come on, my parents got, they have some stuff in the liquor cabinet. Why don't we check out the liquor cabinet? Like, it's fine, parents, they know you, don't worry about it."
Yeah.
Like, okay. And there's a little tiny bottle of Maker's Mark. And he's like, "Dude, this has been in here for like 10 years. He's like, "Just drink it. Nobody's going to be missing it." I'm like, "Okay." And, it's, I don't know, maybe a fifth or whatever. And, we were there for a long time. So we finished it. It was me. I think mostly me. I think he might've had like 1 or 2 shots out of it. It was a horrible night. My girlfriend picked me up. I was throwing up all night. And then he calls me the next day. He's like, "Dude, we messed up." And I was like, "Why? What happened?" He's like, "That little bottle of Maker's Mark?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Special.
Dude, that was my grandfather's that he dipped at the facility. He bottled that himself.
The wax on it, yeah.
Put the wax on it, like, I don't know, 6 months before he died. That was my dad.
Dang.
I was like, "Oh no." He's like, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't come over for a long time." Like, my dad's really upset with you. And I was like, "Okay, noted."
Dang.
Well, I'm really upset with
Noted.
myself.
Yeah. You didn't know.
Yeah. So long story short, I try not to drink Maker's Mark now.
Yeah. That's how I am with Canadian
Yeah.
mist. Yeah.
For the most part, distilled things like, I drink like bourbon. I even drink rye sometimes. And, it's an ongoing debate in the gluten-free community is like, is that enough where the gluten isn't a problem anymore? And when you distill something, especially like bourbon, where you're distilling it 3 times or more, you're talking like several like parts per million of gluten that remains.
Right.
And it doesn't really bother me, but I've noticed I have some other people in my life who are pretty gluten sensitive too, and they can't do that. They'll get real sick. But I drink bourbon a lot.
Well, and if you're going to drink rye, American ryes would probably be better because if it's a Canadian rye, in order for them to call it a rye, it only has to have some rye in the mash. But if
Right.
it's American rye, it has to be greater than 50% rye. So there's probably less wheat in that. But I bought a half gallon last night of Elijah Craig rye. It's the first time I'd seen that one, so I bought that, and I bought a half gallon of Larceny, which is one of my favorite bourbons.
I've been drinking these days. I got lucky and I got a bottle of Buffalo Trace and a couple of Eagle Rare.
Yeah, Buffalo Trace is really, really good.
Yeah,
And we can't hardly get it in Oklahoma. I don't know why. Buffalo Trace is like you can buy one bottle here and there, but I go down to Texas and I can buy it by the case. It's all over the place.
I was trying to see. I thought I had another bottle of this one that I've really been liking lately. I guess I liked it so much that I finished it. But it's called Rowan's Creek.
I've not had that one.
I've only seen it at like one or two stores by me, but it's it's small batch single barrel bourbon. I forget who makes it, but it's so good. It's pretty smooth. I've had smoother for sure, but just the flavor is just so, it's like, I don't know. I don't have
Rowan's?
to get up in expensive bottles, but it tastes like a much more refined whiskey than it is. It's only like, I think it's a 45 or $47 bottle. It's not too bad.
I really love single malt. Single malt scotch is my thing, but I can't afford it very much.
Yes.
Single malt is the bomb.
Yes.
Dave's making it.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dave,
100%.
I like the sweeter single malts. Like I like the Northern Highland single malts, like Balvenie and
Yes.
Macallan.
Oh my goodness.
Especially the sherry finished single malts are that's my jam. The Balvenie Double Wood is my favorite of all time.
Mm.
Now we're talking about it, and I finished my drink, and I'm like, I might as well pour a glass now.
Caribbean cask.
Caribbean cask is
The
good, yeah.
ton. Oh God. Oh, now you're talking my language. I love scotch.
So okay, so Dave, if you like single malt, right? So Balvenie makes. Have you ever had the Balvenie Portwood?
Yes.
So the Portwood is 21 year, okay. And when I was down in St. Vincent, which is where my wife is from, I found a place, and this was 10 years ago. I found a place down in St. Vincent that had a bunch of Balvenie Portwood 12 year. It was the 1993 12 year. And of course, I was buying it in 2014. And it was so cheap down there. It was like equivalent of about $25 or $27 a bottle US. And I bought 2 cases of it. And I brought a couple bottles back with me. And then every time one of my family members came up to visit, I had them bring me a couple of my bottles that I had stashed. Because the Portwood here in the States is the 21 year, and it's like $200 a bottle. It's insane. But the 1993 Portwood, I got 12 bottles of it, and I think I'm down to about maybe 5 bottles left at this point. And so I only break one open once in a great while, but it's great. What a lot of people don't realize about Scotch, I went to the Oakentoshan distillery in Scotland and did a tour of their distillery, and they taught me about how all it's made and all that stuff. When you get a Scotch that's a 12 year, a 15 year, an 18 year, a 21 year, those all got put up in barrels at the same time. And they're all out of the same batch. And then they go through year by year, and their master distiller goes through and tastes it out of each barrel. And he says, this barrel is aging a little bit slower. And so they'll take that barrel and set it aside. And instead of being a 12 year, it'll become a 15 year. And then out of those 15s, they'll pull a few more out as they keep tasting them. And they eventually become an 18 or a 21 year. And so the Balvenie Portwood 21 is the same batch as the Balvenie Portwood 1993 that I bought, but they just pulled them out of the cask and barreled them at 12 years instead of at 21 years. And so I've got a bunch of that, but I can't afford the really good stuff. I've really pretty much stopped drinking scotch because I can't keep up my habit. When I was working ER and making a lot more money, I drank Balvenie Doublewood basically every day. I would come home from night shift in the ER and pour about 6 or 8 ounces of scotch and then go to sleep for 8 hours and then get back up and do it all over again. But I can't.
Dirty socks. That's all I have to say.
I don't know. It depends if you drink Goodwood. Now, dirty socks, maybe, yeah, stuff like Johnny Walker and the blended scotches and stuff. You get into a really good single malt like the Balvenie Doublewood that's sherry finished. It's got a sweet flavor to it. Now the peaty ones that are really smoky, they can be kind of like a Bowmore or an Oakentoshan. Those are they can be kind of harsh for sure.
Yeah, I don't like peaty. I'm not into that. I want that nice, smooth Balvenie scotch. I like that aftertaste, that flavor that you get after it coats your tongue.
The sherry finished scotches, yeah, the Macallans and stuff. So good.
So,
So-
the whole what's his name? Um, come on, guys, help me out. It was on my mind just a second ago.
Oh,
What's his name from the Parks and Rec?
Oh, you're talking about Ken.
Forgive me for not remembering his name.
Yeah.
But it was hot and heavy whenever I started to bring it up. Anyway, I just watched the whole. Oh gosh, I'll stop. I'll come back. Let me get it. Ron Swanson, got it.
Yeah.
So
Swanson, that's
the
it.
whole Ron Swanson, there was a YouTube video that was like a montage of. If you don't know who Ron Swanson is, by the way,
You should look
you got to
him up.
watch him.
Yeah.
Anyway, because you guys are all talking about scotch and stuff. So there was a whole montage of like all of the Ron Swanson alcohol
Oh man,
clips for that
he's got
deal.
so
and
many
it was-
great one-liners.
Oh my gosh, they're so funny. But anyway, Lagavulin was always the scotch that he was drinking, and I didn't think it was real. I thought it was fake.
The Gavulin.
And yeah, anyway, then there was the clip where he was like in Scotland, like he for some reason he had to go to Europe, and he was just like not into it, and he wound up in Scotland. He was like, "This is worth it," because he was like sitting on the rocks, looking over the big cliff, hanging out in the Scotch distilleries and stuff like that. Anyway, funny stuff.
Yeah, that was a very cool thing. Yeah.
It's smoked dirty socks. It's not just dirty socks. It's smoked dirty socks.
Yeah, the distillery I went to was Oakentoshan in Glasgow, and Oakentoshan makes they have Oakentoshan and Bowmore and Glengarrick, and those are Islay scotches, and Isleys are usually pretty smoky. They use peat in the mash, and it's the peat that makes it taste smoky. And that was the first time I really learned to distinguish the different flavors in the scotches. When I sat down at their distillery and with their bartender, you take the tour, and after the tour, you're allowed to have everybody gets one shot. And it was just me and my wife, and she was pregnant. And so there was nobody else there. And I sat down with the bartender, and he said, "Well, what do you like?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I drink scotch and I like it, but I can't really, people talk about, the earthy flavors, and they talk about this and that, and I can't really differentiate that." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll help you out." And he sat down and he pulled out a bunch of bottles and he started pouring me shots. And he said, "Now just take a sip of that and tell me the first thing that comes to your mind." And I took a sip, and I said, "Well, it kind of tastes like dirt a little bit. It wasn't bad, but I could taste kind of," and he's like, "That's what they're talking about when they say it's an earthy flavor." And I was like, "Okay." So then he poured another one, and I tasted that, and I was like, "Okay." It was a Bowmore 18 or something. And I was like, "That tastes like smoke." He's like, "Yeah, there you go. That's the peat in the mash that gives it that smoky flavor." I ended up having like 7 shots sitting there. I was only supposed to get one, but that was a great experience. And you walk in, and we walked in this room, and they've got 3 big vats where the mash is boiling. They're like 30,000 liter vats, and it's warm in there. You can feel the heat just rolling off of this boiling mash. And I was like, "So do you have, like heater coils in the bottom of the vats or whatever?" And he goes, "No, that's the fermentation that's creating all the heat and creating that
Wow.
rolling boil. There's no heat applied to it at all." And so saw that, and then we went into where they had the big copper distiller, the stills, and like 15,000 liter stills, and it was awesome. That was one of the coolest things to go do that distillery tour in Scotland. That
Wow.
and the bagpipes, man. You don't realize how freaking loud bagpipes are until you're standing and they're playing in the middle of a city square and it's all stone, hundreds of years old, all these stone buildings. And there's one guy with a bagpipe, and it's like deafening you because it's all echoing off these stone. Those things are made to sound from hilltop to hilltop, and they're just loud as hell. But
Wow.
in
I had no
Glasgow,
idea.
yeah, every year I think it's I want to say it's in August of every year. They have the World Bagpipe Festival, and there's like 8,000 bagpipers that come, and they have this giant parade that they all walk through and they're playing. I'm like, that's one of the things on my bucket list too, is to go to the big bagpipe festival. It's incredible.
That's
Such a cool
intense.
place.
I had
It's
no
awesome.
idea.
Oh, they're so loud. Oh my God.
Where I went to high school, for some reason there was the pretty big Irish population. There's a lot of like Irish step dancing clubs and like bagpipe stuff like that. And this kid from class, I guess, was in like piping group, and he would come to
Oh, the Doublewood 17. Oh my God.
there it is.
Dave, you're killing me. Oh,
He would come to school every
oh.
while, and he
Got
would
more.
pipe in the hallways. And if you think standing in a city square made of stone is bad, try doing
In the hallway. Yeah,
a high school hallway with lockers on each side of you.
that's awesome. That would be so
Dang.
freaking cool. There's a McAllen. That's the McAllen 12 there, isn't it? Yeah, that's awesome. I love McAllen, but I can't afford it. Now I can't afford Balvenie either. Used to, when I was in ER, I was paying $45, $47 a bottle for Balvenie Doublewood. I checked it the other night at the store. It's $80 a bottle now.
Oh my goodness.
Signature box. I gotta know what the Costco bourbon is like.
Actually, I've heard that the Kirkland bourbon is actually really good.
Uh,
And they have a Scotch too. Is that the Scotch, Dave? That's a 40-year?
Wow.
what?
What a freaking collection. Oh, my-
40 year? He don't have his microphone with him.
Got
I
chunk.
had the guy when I was at the distillery, he gave me one shot of the Bowmore. That's probably 40th anniversary. He gave me
Oh, okay.
one shot of Bowmore 25 year. And it's like, God, I don't remember how much it was because it was in pounds. I want to say it was like 500 pounds a bottle.
Wow.
And he gave me one shot. I was like, well, this is about $30 for one shot. And it was good. It was very good, but it was smoky. And I don't drink smoky scotches because they tear up my stomach. I get heartburn. But the sweet ones, the sherry finished, absolutely love those.
Do you drink clear alcohols? That's a Ron Swanson thing, just so
yeah,
you know.
no. Yeah. If I do, I'm mixing it. It's vodka and orange juice or something. But
He said clear alcohols are for rich women on diets,
there you go. Yeah.
is what he said.
They have one. They have a rum down in St. Vincent, where my wife is from. They have a rum called Sunset Rum. That's their national brand, and they have two different ones. They have regular Sunset Rum, and then they have very strong rum. And the very strong Sunset Rum is like 190 proof. It is absolutely insane. It's like drinking turpentine, and you can't get it out of the country. They won't let you get on an airplane with it. They actually will confiscate it out of your bag because it's considered too flammable or whatever.
What the heck?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
I've gotten pretty messed up on the Sunset Very Strong rum sometimes, but I don't
Go,
think-
go.
we used to have a bottle here, but we don't have any more.
Interesting.
Mezcal is my
Well,
drink
Mezcal's good. Yeah, that's the smoky tequila kind of flavor. Yeah.
that. I briefly lived in Amsterdam, and I made friends with these guys there were some Dutch guys who spent some time in Mexico because they wanted to open like a mezcaleria in Amsterdam. And so they stayed in Mexico for I think like 6 months and learned how to make proper mezcal and learned about all the different types and stuff, and where it's a very regional thing, very provincial. And they opened this place in Amsterdam called El Cabron, and that was going there and making friends with these guys was probably my first real experience drinking mezcal. And they do it like legit. They do it with like there's a word for it and I forget what it is, but like the cricket salt or like the worm salt, and You do it with a slice of orange instead of lime, and oh my god, during
Mezcal is good. Yeah, if you get a good mezcal, that's way better than most tequilas.
oh my god, I could drink mezcal all night. During quarantine, when I still had a job, but they paid me for a little while just to stay home, and then they were paying me basically to sit around at work. And I was still living at home with my parents at the time, and I would come home and I would buy one, if not two, of the I don't even remember. I guess it's the 750, right? The taller
That's a fifth. Yeah.
of the Casamigos mezcal. And my dad and my neighbor and we would sit down and drink like one, if not two bottles, like every night. And we'd be
Gosh.
outside on the back deck, like, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, being like, I don't even feel drunk. I don't understand. Like, when's the alcohol gonna kick in? And yeah, that was quarantine. Was pretty much just mezcal like every night. But that's in the past. We don't party.
In Missouri during quarantine, we sent all the guys that were okay home so that all the guys that had it could stay at work.
Nice.
That's what we did. We got some pits built.
They took pretty good care of us during quarantine because I the time was working at it's like an upscale grocery store, and there's a lot of people in my industry that got laid off, and luckily they kept us on, and we actually got a little bit of a pay bump for while that was all going on, because it was a nightmare. I'll never forget that first day when everything hit, and like it was like riots at a grocery store, man. I was like amazed. I've never felt that like uneasy at work. You know what I mean? Not that I was like super worried, I could take care of myself for sure. But like, it's like, it was like people were in total like panic mode. It was like World War. And for a good while, like, I do the cooking, right? The prepared foods and stuff. And we weren't really doing that for a couple of months because, obviously nobody was there to buy it. Everybody was at home. So they would take turns sending people from the kitchen up to like almost be like a bouncer. Like, you sit at the door with the little clicker and you count the number of people coming in, and you go, oh, hold on, you got to wait.
Yeah.
Walkie-talkie in your ear, and they go, okay,
Weird.
let 10 people in. And he let 10 people in, and they go, whoa, wait. So,
Hey, Dave. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tal. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, even if we weren't doing actual cooking, they were pretty good about keeping everybody with something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, that's a hell of a liquor collection, man.
Yeah.
I decided to go mobile. I figured out that there's a way to connect it to the cell phone, and then I could walk out of the room. But I couldn't hear you, because you were in this room and I'm like out there.
What was the Kirkland 40? Was that like 40th anniversary or something?
No, that's a Glenfiddich 40.
Oh my God.
That's a 40. That's a real 40. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's my retirement.
So back in the day when things were a little different in my life, me and a buddy of mine were going to this lounge all the time, and they were known for having brown liquors. So we began to buy and buy and buy, and eventually I had my own VIP shelf. And before I knew it, I had 2 shelves. And we would come in, and the clients are like, that's the money team. So we got known, and that's what the shelf said. It said the money team every time we'd come in. So I had the guys from they were from Ferrari and Bentley. They would come in and they hang with us. We had a great time back in the day. I did a lot of stupid stuff. So that's some of the things that are left over from the good old days. Not the stuff from Costco, not Kirkland. The other bottles.
Hey, Dave, I was going to ask, are you and me the only ones watching the YouTube feed right now?
110%. I know that. I'm looking at this. Every time I look up, it says 2 people. I'm like, because the other guys that were in here, I'm going to disconnect from this, and then
They were gone a long time ago.
Yeah. They're like, oh, these guys have gone off rabbit trail hunting, and
they